Thanks very much. Good morning and welcome everybody to today's Caithness Area Committee meeting. Just before we get started, just the usual reminder, please note this is a formal Highland Council meeting and is recorded and will be uploaded for public access via the Highland Council's YouTube site, and therefore you're reminded not to make any specific references to individuals and to only disclose information which is in the public domain. Also remind members that the chat function is for only placing motions and amendments, and any members wishing to participate in the discussion to raise their hands and we'll come round to you. So I'll just now go over to call the roll and any apologies for absence. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have any formal apologies, but I'll just check who's here. Councillor Bremner. I don't think he's here yet. Councillor Gunn.
Yes, I'm present. I think Councillor Bremner's in London. He gave it apologies on Friday to us at a meeting.
Right, thanks very much. I'll take a note of that. Councillor Jarvie, Chair, you're here. Councillor Mackay.
Yeah, present.
Councillor Mackey.
Good morning, Fiona. I'm present.
Morning. Councillor McEwen.
I'm present, thank you.
Councillor Rees.
Yeah, present, thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Rosie.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Present.
That's everybody.
Now going to item 2, which is just declarations of interest in any transparency statements. I don't think we've received any in advance, but is there any transparency statements any members need to make for today's agenda? No, I'm not seeing any hands there. So that being that, I'll get on to the first substantive item of the agenda. That's the Scottish Fire and Rescue Local Performance Report, and we have Jamie here today to introduce his report. So I'll pass over to you now, Jamie. Thanks.
Okay, good morning, everyone. As the chair's just said, my name's Jamie Thrower. I'm a group commander with the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, and I cover what we call the Highland North area. So that pretty much covers the area north of Inverness, from basically over the Keswick Bridge and north. So normally you'll be used to seeing Station Commander Gary Kringles, but Gary's off just now, so I'm taking his place today to present this report. But just on that, good news. Gary's forecast to be back to work in a couple of weeks, basically 2 weeks today. Gary comes back to work, so potentially there's a good chance that he'll be presenting the next report to the committee. But obviously, you can contact them anytime after 2 weeks, and then you'll have my contact details as well. So in terms of the committee report, folks have obviously put the report in. It was all sent out to yourselves, and I put a covering note in with that. And I just really want to highlight just a few, just reporting by exception, highlight a few points from it. One thing that I did want to cover before I went in the main body of the report, I missed the deadline to get this into the covering letter, but one of the things you may have noticed in the report is, well, all the numbers are accurate. So all the numbers that we quote in the tables and the graphs, sorry, the tables and the wee pictograms, they're all accurate. And this reporting period for this meeting is clearly Q1 and Q2. What we do have, however, is within the graphs, when we run these reports, the graphs, so it runs the graphs to the date that we run the report, and we run the report in advance of this meeting. So what's happened is the graphs have included Q3, just in case you notice some of the trends or notice some of the numbers are wrong, which is what I noticed just after I was writing that covering report. So I can assure you that all the numbers are accurate. It's just when you look at the graphs, you'll see that it includes Q3, which is not part of this reporting period. And then we'll capture that. We'll capture that in the next committee meeting. So it's probably just that you have to cut off the last quarter from each of the graphs. But we can cover that in any questions towards the end, and I'll try and cover it as I go through. So just in this reporting period, the Q1, Q2 of this fiscal year, so starting on the 1st of April 2025 for the 6 months following that, we had a total number of 151 incidents, and that's all broken down in the report for you to see. I'm happy to report that we had 0 fire casualties within that period, but unfortunately we had one non-fire casualty, which was an incident that was a multi-agency incident, and with the Blue Services all worked together to resolve that incident. So just in terms of going through the main trends, there's information on the graphs there. I just want to bring your attention to, well, it's kind of chapter 2 in the trends. So that was one of the ones that I had a close look on. So what you'll see, just the very first page of 2, I wish we would number these pages, but I'm in section 2 trends, the first page of that, and where we show accidental dwelling fires. So I'm just conscious that Q3 is not within this reporting period, but you'll notice there that in the reporting period we had 3 in Q1 and we had 2 in Q2. That's accidental dwelling fires, but that's lifted to 7 in Q3. So just to give everybody reassurance that we're actively looking at that, albeit thankfully we're always dealing with small numbers when we report to Caithness committee, but that is an increase. We will report on that in the next reporting period when we come to the next meeting, but it's just to give you assurance that that's a rise that we've noticed, and we're having a look to see what is in relation to the incidents. Is there anything that could have been done to prevent them, and is there anything we could learn from these incidents moving forward? So as I say, don't want to, just keep that point too much, but it's just it's in the report there. That's 7, which is clearly a lot higher than the rest. But when you're reading these graphs, it's really just looking at Q1 and Q2 for this reporting period. Is there any questions on that? I know we normally keep questions to the end, but I think that's maybe quite an anomaly of the report. I'll take a pause there. I was really quite content. Okay with that. Okay, we can catch it in if there's anything else towards the end. So, and again, you can see that with road traffic collisions. So I'm on the second page of the trends now. So we're reporting on road traffic collision casualties. Within this reporting period, there was a 2 and a 3 in Q1 and Q2, but we see a rise towards up to 8 in Q3. So again, we'll look to give more context behind that and what we're actively doing to reduce it moving forward in the next one. So just specifically looking at number 3, I mean section 3, accidental dwelling fires. So as I say, within this reporting period, when we add the 2 together, we get 5 accidental dwelling fires within the period. But as I said at the start, we've had no fire fatalities within that. Most of these accidental dwelling fires were small with little damage and little injury to parties. Moving on to non-fire casualties, and I mentioned unfortunately I had one non-fire fatality within the reporting period, but you could probably see by the report that they've submitted there is a variation in the incidents that we're attending, and certainly within Caithness, a lot of the incidents we're attending is certainly in conjunction with other blue light services where we're all supporting each other. Within that will include us supporting Scottish Ambulance Service with bariatric patients, or supporting police and ambulance with affecting entry if they need to get into a property or a building to access the casualty. We did have 21 deliberate fires within the period, which again, if you can looking at the graph, that was an increase. What we're seeing from the stats here, you can see there was a significant number of grassland and woodland crops. So basically, it's outdoor fires that are then, potentially camping fires that are spreading. So that was, as a reporting period would suggest, that was from the 1st of April all the way through the summer. So we've been actively engaging out in the area and, pardon the pun, hotspots. Ultimately, leaflet and putting signage up in areas where there may be campfires that could get out of control. Certainly using our social media channels to ask people that are enjoying the outdoors to do so responsibly without having a negative impact on the environment and the communities. The only other parts I wanted to highlight is we've spoke about it in previous reporting periods. So when you look at the graph of unwanted fire alarm signals, over the 4 years, clearly there is a reduction in that, and as it was presented to committees in previous meetings, that's because we've had a significant change to how we respond to unwanted fire alarm signals across the whole of the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service. So we only now respond to unwanted fire alarms or fire alarms going off where there's a sleeping risk or there's a specific risk to people. But we still classify them as unwanted fire alarm signals where we get to the incident and it's actually been like an apparatus error or some sort of issue with a fire alarm, for example. So, and where they are sleeping risks, and some of the examples are written on the table: hospitals, medical care, hotels, residential care homes, sheltered housing. We will always attend fire alarms in these properties right away, immediately. As soon as we get a notification that there's a fire alarm going off in these properties, we'll always immediately attend. But where it is established that it has been an unwanted fire alarm, we will certainly engage with the duty holder to try and reduce that, because clearly the type of incidents are having an impact on ourselves as an organisation, and it will be having an impact on the duty holder and the running of their business. So we do actively engage in any times that maybe a recurring theme with a specific property. But again, during this reporting period, I've not got any specific. It has been kind of one or two at varying different properties. So there's nowhere where we've been having to do remedial work. Again, as I said, road traffic collisions within the report, we've seen an increase on that Q3 period, so we'll cover that in the next meeting. But the breakdown on the reports there for that period, we've had 4 RTCs involving cars, 2 with motorcycles, and 1 that was a multi-vehicle accident over the summer there. Just going to quickly touch on our proactive activities. So again, probably another point to highlight to the committee is that home fire safety visits is another area where we've carried out a significant change in how we operate. So we are now concentrating our efforts to high-risk home fire safety visits. So what happens now is any member of the public that's looking for home fire safety advice will fill in a pro forma, and depending on the outcome of that, we'll determine whether we just give them localised generic advice, or if we give them that more specific, going out to see them and sitting with them in their house and doing that full home fire safety visit. That can also come in from partner referrals, and again, it's just by the same eligibility criteria. Normally, if people are being referred into us by other agencies, they're probably going to meet that eligibility, and we'll carry out the full home safety visit check. So as much as it may look like the overall numbers are down, it's just that we're targeting our resources more appropriately to the people that really need that help and advice. Just moving on, then I just want to touch again on the availability. So there's a table towards the end of the report for the availability of the stations. Just as we always point out, and I'm sure Gary's done this in the past, that table doesn't include joint mobilising. That's something that we first piloted on the North Coast, and we do that certainly between John O'Groats. All the stations on that table are able to joint mobilise if required. And it's, as I said to you in my introduction, I obviously cover Highland North, and we're doing that across all the stations within the Highland North area just now. But really good availability there for Thurso and Wick that I'm happy to report on. I did look at the specific incidents, so obviously Wick First Appliance excellent, just only 0.41% of the whole reporting period where that was off, and it's not unlikely been we're into talking about half an hours and hours of periods where the appliance has been off, and it's just been on a, as everyone knows, we've got retained on-call firefighters who've got primary employment out with our organisation, and that's been identified as just a small period of time where we had a changeover in their primary employment shifts with people ultimately going in a back shift, coming back for a night shift, things like that, and it's been over a lunchtime. But as I say, 0.41% only for Wick. And for Thurso's one, I checked that these specific instances, it wasn't one instance, it was multiple instances, again, commonly over a weekday lunchtime, just when we've got that change of shifts with the primary employers. And on that occasion, we had both pumps sitting in Wick when Thurso were off, so we either moved the second machine from Wick through to give the cover, or we utilised our on-call support watch commanders, who we've probably mentioned to you in presentations before. And that's the full-time individuals that we have situated in Thurso and Wick, and we can move them to increase appliance availability. But it's just when we react to that, we still have that 2.25% time where the appliance has been off until we've resolved the issue. And then just towards the end of the report, members, we've just made a note of some of the events we've been doing. Some of them you're probably familiar with from being active in the area. I'm not looking to go through them all. Just report by exception in the report, but we've certainly got continue our engagement at Doonray, both sites at Doonray. We're in our successful Thurso fire station open day. The weather seems to be kind to us on that day, so we'll be having an R1 in 2026. It seems to be lucky with the weather, so we'll keep that running for time lucky. Covered the home fire safety visit details. Obviously, wildfire's been a topic over the summer. We continue to invest in our strategy. And if there's any questions on that towards the end, we can cover that. Probably one of the obviously we're done our public consultation under SDR, which is Service Delivery Review. So nothing specifically to report into this committee. However, I'm conscious that you may have been involved in our public consultation process. So that's the formal public consultation process is closed now. So just like to thank anybody that did participate in that. And now the service is looking at the returns from the public consultation, and we'll look to make amendments moving forward in 2026. And that's really everything I wanted to cover, everyone. So happy to clarify any points or answer any questions you may have.
Perfect, thanks very much. And I'll just open it up to questions from members and see Councillor Guns first there.
Yeah, thanks, you. Thanks, Jamie, for a good report. It's always good to hear what the service has been doing, and it's busy as usual. The question I had was regarding wildfire. I know we've had a couple incidents up in Thurso, and the service has done a fantastic job keeping it down and stopping it from spreading, so well done there. You know, I read there you had specialist vehicles. I just wondered if you had anything in Caithness specifically for the wildfire. Thanks.
Yep, thanks, Councillor. Yeah, thanks for raising that. Yeah, in terms of wildfires, yeah, I would also like to commend the crews. It's massive efforts, as everyone knows. The wildfires do tend to be protracted incidents, and the crews always put a significant amount of work in. So in terms of wildfire resources, I'm trying to remember what was in the report, but it's immaterial. I can cover what's in there. In terms of within Caithness, so at the minute, not within Caithness, and we're just basically, as with all our models, we look at where our operational activity has been. There's a significant amount of modelling goes on to make our decisions on where we're going to put resources, and that can be from historical data where we've had fires before, into projected data as to how land is being used in areas and how land is being managed, essentially. But like you say, we obviously had a significant fire a couple of years ago in the Caithness area. We also have to look at where we have got resources in terms of personnel before we put an actual physical resource of vehicles. Do we have a crewing model that can get that to the area? So anyway, at the minute, what we've got is we've got a full wildfire unit sitting in Invergordon, which is obviously on the A9 within a quick response into Caithness up on that main trunk road up the east side. We've also got the exact same resource sitting in Allapool. Obviously not as good trunk roads to get into Caithness, but we have got that resource there. And that wildfire resource consists of a Ford Ranger with a fogging unit, which is really effective for putting out wildfires, but that also tows a Polaris all-terrain vehicle on the back. So we can get that mobilised really quickly from Invergordon. We have also purchased a wildfire support van, which is not in place yet, but that will be going to Dornoch. So again, not fully in Caithness, but just close on the border, because that's where we can crew it. So it's really just up the A9 and into that response. We are actively looking. It was actually only just last week we were looking at options potentially to add in someone into Thurso, but there's nothing confirmed there at the minute. But we have got good crewing at Thurso and Wick, as you've seen in the report. So we are looking at that. But ultimately, it's Invergordon live at the minute, and then Dornoch soon to go live within the first half of this year. But nothing in Caithness at the minute.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much. Any other members have any questions on this? Councillor Race.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Jamie, for the report. Always like them when they're nice and succinct like that. It's good. I had two queries. The first one was I saw a photo on Facebook during the recent snow weather of your unit at John O'Groats out in what looked like pretty deep snow, and I'm interested to know how much of a challenge can these very snowy conditions be to your crews? How effective is a typical fire tender at getting through deep snow? That's just a general point, but the key thing was, as far as I could see, they got to the incident, which is actually at the end of the day what matters. My second query is also over the weekend I saw reports that regarding the big scrapyard fire at Elgin, which is a long way from Caithness, I know, but you'll understand what I'm asking. This fire was caused by a lithium battery, and in relation to all the battery energy storage systems that are proposed here in the county, the reports on the report into the scrapyard fire, and I really wonder if this is correct. It said that up to 146 SFRS personnel were required to deal with the fire, which was caused by a single battery. And it also said, and I cannot, you can't believe everything you sort of see on Facebook, but they said that personnel from as far away as Wick were required to attend, which seems sort of really strange. I just wondered if you can make any comments about, obviously, and I know I've asked before about this, particularly for Caithness, the resources that you do have available here to contend with battery energy fires. And on the same point, there were photographs posted online of big snowdrifts up against battery energy units, not here, but in other parts of Scotland. And people were saying, is the snow in any form a hazard to the safe operation of these units? So sorry, there's a couple of big ones in there and a small one about the vehicles in the snow. Thank you.
No problem, Councillor. Thanks for that. And what I'll do is I've made a few notes there, and I'll try and answer everything you've asked me there, and probably can sum it up at the end if there's any point that I missed. Yeah, so challenging weather pretty much started on the 2nd of January. We're probably used to it in Highland, but it certainly was challenging starting there for about a week. And yes, commending the crews. I think in terms of, obviously, as everybody will be aware, all our vehicles within Scottish Fire and Rescue Service are maintained by our workshops down here in Inverness. They service the whole of the Highlands, and the vehicles are equipped. Well, like for example, the officer cars, we just run all weather tyres all the way around, and the sort of inspection regime for a fire appliance is, as you would imagine, is a lot more involved than a standard lorry. So we'll change tyres well in advance than when they really need done. So, but I think the weight of the fire appliances, actually, the bigger they are more effective in cutting into snow and getting a grip. And the driver training is significant. And the drivers will really just adjust their driving. We ultimately drive to arrive. We understand that people are needing us in a hurry, but we need to take the time to look after the crews and actually arrive there. There is no doubt, just as always, but certainly over that week and a half at the start of this year, it's a multi-agency approach. So again, members will probably be well aware that there was a Highland Resilience Partnership was stood up pretty much. If it wasn't on the 2nd of January, it was certainly on the 3rd because it was the 2nd because I was at the 2nd of January. So again, as a resilient partnership tends to be, that gives us that direct opportunity to be able to speak to essentially many other agencies, but specifically speak to Highland Council Roads and speak to Bear Scotland in terms of the trunk roads, and just share where we may be having difficulties, as others were, NHS Highland and ambulance and police were doing. But it was just a multi-agency response, as you'd imagine, and certainly Highland Council Roads Department helped us with access in and out of the stations. The crews are able to clear their own station front aprons. They'll actively do that, but in terms of the main routes to stations, as members will know, Highland Council have got their primary routes, and however it works, P1s and P2s. But ultimately, it was that multi-agency response. We, as you say, we managed to get to every incident. There is always, I think, forgive me if I can't remember my years, but I think it was last year. I think it was the year before. we actually got help from ultimately farmers and other members of the community that had machinery that could clear roads, and it was the road between that goes from Thurso past the college and down to Halkirk that way. That was a road that was pretty much impassable, and there was just, you know, Highland Council were extremely busy trying to deal with many roads and bus routes and school routes, etc. So that was a road that we were struggling to get out to respond to incidents, and there was ultimately members of the community with the appropriate resources helped to clear that road, and we actually invited them into the station and give them a certificate of appreciation, because they ultimately they helped all emergency services get a route out to Halkirk that day. Does that cover everything on the query about the weather? I don't know if I missed anything.
Yeah, no, extremely thoroughly. I wasn't expecting that much, but absolutely covered.
Okay,
Thank you.
Well, hopefully I can give you something thorough. So in terms of the scrap fire in Elgin, I'm not completely versed in our response to that. What I would imagine, having a look at the numbers that you've read, you know, in the media, if they're quoting 146 personnel being on the scene, what I would imagine is that'll be over the whole course of the incident, including relief crews, because as these incidents tend to be, they tend to go on for a few days. So probably what's happened there is, you know, because we're probably working on a crew of 4, 5, or 6 on an appliance, and even doing the quick maths on that, 146 even divided by 5 for an average number, yeah, is quite a significant number of appliances, and I can't see that being there. You know, them being there at the start or even at the height of the incident. So I'd imagine that 146 has been over the full time of the incident. Again, what I'll do is I can look into it in more detail, come back to you out with the meeting. Again, in terms of Wick responding to Elgin, certainly not someone I'm aware of that the crews coming in. It's someone I probably would be aware of if the crews had that travel distance on top of working. That's someone that I'd be expected to be cited on if crews from Wick were having to travel to that area, then do firefighting work and then travel back. I think that there's maybe been some sort of typo or error, but I'll certainly look into it, come back for you from the meeting. No looking to try and guess within a committee meeting. I'm just wondering if there's been any special equipment requested from Wick Airport, but again, I think the fact that Inverness Airport is closer high out in terms of high hour resources, it would have probably came for them. But I'll see what I can find out and come back to you with it without the meeting. But as we know, any of these incidents tend to be, well, they will be demanding on resources. Having not been familiar with the full incident, I think that the fact that it's been batteries that are ultimately decommissioned, that's where there is work required. I think when we're looking in the Caithness area, when we've got the specific purpose-built battery energy storage systems in the construction phase or the operating phase, in line with the planning consents that's required and ultimately the British standards for building them, you know, I'm happy that we could respond to any incident there. I think it's more that for this Elgin one, without knowing the details of it, it's how that's managed, how that recycling and storage of any used batteries and how it's stored within the vicinity of a recycling plant. Was that where it was, within what they were calling scrap, but was it ultimately recycling?
Yeah, it's in a scrapyard. But just to be clear, Jamie, I wasn't asking you to do any extra work. I was more just interested in the resources you have in Caithness to deal with any instance we might get here. So yeah, please don't feel you need to go away and dig into that one. Also, I wonder if it's just maybe one individual person from Wick, maybe a specialist or something, went down there to help. I'm absolutely certain the fire tender wouldn't have come from Wick, as you say.
Yeah. Well, certainly we would send, you know, because we would. I'll give you a kind of an opposing example for a different incident. We've got a high volume pump, for example, in Elgin. We've got water rescue resources in Elgin, and we would send them to Wick. If I could flip it, we would absolutely send national specialist resources in the opposite direction. But I don't think there's anything specialist enough in Wick that would cause that to go. So it's probably just an error in the report. But in terms of response in the Caithness area, it would be that initial response we would be able to cover. I'm confident to be able to cover that initial response as with any instance, whether it's weather response that we've talked about, wildfire
Okay,
response.
thank you. Yeah.
Once that initial crews have attended, the relief crews are always going to be coming for further afield, but we've got that time to plan and bring resources ultimately up from either Inverness or further into Scotland. So that covers that, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you very much. The final point, and just really a brief answer, is whether or not the people who are expressing some concerns about big deep snow drifts up against the cooling parts of the BESS units, whether that is something that is significant, or frankly, is it a bit of a red herring?
I suspect it was the latter, but I would be more than happy to look into it. I'm actually within my role in the fire service. I'm also a hazardous materials tactical advisor for the service, and so it's an area that interests me. So I've got no hassle in going away and having a look.
Okay.
But I would imagine, in terms of snow drifts, to be honest, I think it would be more. It potentially would be of benefit because it's a cooling. It's cooling on the base. Any vents tend to be at the top above eye level, so the snow is not going to be covering any vents. And I think if it was an issue, it would be covered in risk assessments and would be a control measure for the operator to say if there is snow drifts, you need to clear them immediately. I don't think it's a concern.
Thank you very much indeed for those answers, Jamie. Much appreciated.
I've got Councillor Mackay followed by Councillor Rosie.
Thank you, Chair. I hope the audio holds out on my laptop here. It's been playing up, but here we go. Thank you, Jamie. Very comprehensive report indeed. A lot of detail. Absolutely. One little area that interests me at your opening remarks at 4.2 is your new modernised home safety visits for those most at risk. Now, in years gone by, Jamie, the frying pan was the #1 fault of a house fire late in the evening. So what other dangers are you seeing nowadays leading to accidental dwelling house fires? Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Just ultimately, most accidental dwelling fires tend to involve the occupants of the property, and that's where our home fire safety visits really concentrate our efforts, looking at how people ultimately live within their property and giving any advice to reduce the risk there. But you're right, whether it was frying pans or chip pans commonly, that's less common now because either people have moved on to a thermostatic controlled deep fat fryer or just use oven chips, tend not to use them. But I think within that, if I go back, within the report you're referring to, let's go back in there. There is a limited amount of accidental dwelling fires within the reporting period, as you can see, just a total of 5. So it's hard within Caithness to get any. Thankfully it's a low number and it's hard to get any trends or correlations. But ultimately, the trends and correlations from Scottish Fire and Rescue Service and nationally, it says in the report. I know it's saying limited to item first ignited, limited to the room of origin. We still get fires within the kitchen, and we still get fires from smoking materials. So probably commonly, if people are smoking in the home, that's where we're commonly seeing fires. Tends to be common trends: people living on their own, older people living on their own, and if there's anybody in the house, any house that smokes, it's where we're seeing the trend. And again, that's where we concentrate our efforts with our targeted home fire safety visits. Mobility issues, just anybody that's needing support, and that's really where this referring in from partner agencies is really important. Because if individuals out staying in Caithness there, if they're getting support from other agencies, they can be vulnerable, and if we get that referral in from agencies, we can help them, and that's what we're really keen to do, and that's been successful in the area, as you've probably seen by the reduction in actual accidental dwelling fires. Hopefully that answers your question, Councillor.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Jamie.
Councillor Rosie.
Thank you, Chair, and apologies. I cannot get my camera to function, so apologies for not being on screen. Jamie, thanks for your report. Very clear and concise. Really, I guess it's more for the Chair than yourself, but it's in response to your comments on BESS storage. I think it's important that we give public as much assurance as we possibly can. There are repeated questions over BES. I always find it interesting. I think as Highland Council, and I forget when they arranged a visit to a BES facility where councillors and members of the public were able to visit and understand what a design safety systems were. And I know personally, I got a great deal of more understanding than I had before doing that and subsequent to that. But I wonder, Chair, if we should, as an action from this, write to Highland Council, suggest that another visit be made available. It was quite some time in passing to a facility. I think the industry would welcome it, but I think it'd be a very useful process to enable, so community councils, elected members, and members of the public, I'm sure, if we could arrange it. I think it'd be so useful just to understand what engineered and designed systems are to give people some degree of assurance, because it's very different from battery fires and recycling plants or, scrap yards. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of what you said, Councillor Rosie, I think that there's a couple of things there. Yes, you want to be able to reassure the public, but that is kind of contingent upon there being enough information for us to reliably do so. And I think from my perspective, a lot of the concerns that people have around BES storage come from not misinformation, the fact that information that would reassure people still doesn't exist. And certainly, I mean, I would be more than welcome to see planning committees able to do site visits to see these things. One hasn't happened yet. So I think there's about sort of 3 or 4 different things in kind of what you said, that there is the broader understanding of how they work, but the sort of reassuring people and the planning phases, they're all. So I think if there's been any kind of visits, it's specifically what are we looking for, but something could look into in the near future. So thanks. Councillor McEwen.
Thanks. I was just going to clarify something there. Councillor Rosie, it was actually the members of the planning committees and some officers that went on that site visit. It wasn't open to the public. I was on that visit and it did give some assurance, but it would be better if we had some more assurance regarding the fire risk involved. But it did give me some assurance, but it was the planning committees, wasn't open to the public. So it wasn't. Just for clarification. Thanks.
Councillor Bremner.
Good morning, everybody. I had thought that I wasn't going to be able to attend the meeting today, but I've managed to get a bit of time to be able to pop in and out. So, and it was just a particular. I just managed to catch the point where Jamie was talking about attendance in challenging snow conditions. Jamie, I'm aware that there is a Highland Resilience Partnership, a local resilience partnership. As part of that, discussions are had with all the emergency organisations and others, and being able to meet the challenges as best as possible head on, and to try and deliver services, emergency services. As part of that, I take it that you have the ability as a Scottish Fire and Rescue Service to be able to call on the resource of other partners and being able to assist you to attend. And it might not just be fires, there are many other occasions, whether it's an RTA, but you have the ability to be able to call Bear Scotland or the Highland Council, and that they would have the ability, if you found it inaccessible or a challenging road condition, where a convoy can actually be put in place, where a plough would actually go in front of the fire engine, that wouldn't actually or could assist any volunteer assistance that you would get from locals. I think I was coming in at the point where you were mentioning that, but actually there is a there is a plan or an ability to be able to call the council and Bear Scotland to be able to assist you accessing the area that you would need to attend. And I noticed that Jonathan Gunn, actually, he's here from Rhodes, and I would hope that he has the ability to be able to confirm that. But as I understand it, that is the case. Could you just confirm or give some reassurance in that? Thanks.
Yep, certainly, Councillor, and thanks for the question and for raising it. Yeah, I can give that absolute reassurance. So, don't know why I repeat everything that had gone before, but ultimately, yeah, there was Highland Resilience Partnerships happening once a day, round about midday, and then yes, so that kind of wider generic discussion is happening there, building up the relationship, building up the contact. So you've been in a Teams meeting with somebody during the day that you have their number to contact them at 9, 11, 1 in the morning. You could contact them. We have all that robust communication methods. So yeah, we would in terms of the slow time and the good planning during the day, we could. That's what these resilient partnership meetings are all about. Everybody on the call will be aware of that, where each agency can probably say how they're coping, how they're getting on, and where the challenges they may be having, and can we help each other. So under Care for People, I know some of the carers were struggling to get into areas. So other agencies were offering 4x4s and drivers to take them in. Obviously, Bear Scotland, the Highland Council, were looking to prioritise closing the roads. But yeah, just to give you that reassurance, more out with that meeting structure. If we were struggling to get to a specific building, we've got numbers ready via our operations control to contact an emergency. I'll be honest, it is easier with Bear Scotland because they're running a 24/7. Their gritters are out 24/7 and they can redeploy. As members will probably be aware, Highland Council gritters do stop in the evening, probably don't go out after 9 o'clock. However, we can still contact contacting the roads coordinator, and they'll get a driver and a gritter out. There is a slight delay because it's not the 24/7 cover, but yeah, absolutely, we've got these contact numbers and can get that response. Ultimately, yeah, they become an emergency response just along with us to help us and give that reassurance.
Thank you.
Right, and just one question for myself there, just on the increase in road traffic collisions. It's quite surprising because it has been quite low for some time, which has been very welcome. And something I'm a little bit perplexed because I did the North Coast 500 again this year, and of all the years I've done it, I have to say it's probably the one that felt the least like a free for all. That there seemed to be certainly from my, if you haven't done it, almost every year, this year seemed to, it felt like there was a change in, traffic and driver behaviour. So to sort of now see this is a bit of a surprise. So I know you said that you're kind of looking into it and breaking it down, but do you have anything you could share, at this stage, even, what's the kind of breakdown? Is it, predominantly trunk road, or is it more on council roads, or, what are kind of the early indications of what that could possibly be?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I think in terms of for the committee, I don't want to kind of steal away from what the police may respond in the next committee meeting when they report, but just in terms of your comment on the North Coast 500, we work in conjunction with Police Scotland on road safety. We do a lot of work more for local residents in terms of do a lot of work in schools, new drivers, etc. But I know that Police Scotland either actively going out on the North Coast 500 and doing patrols and looking to change that driver behaviour, and on social media channels for the same reasoning. And that's perhaps where you're seeing, for real, when you're out there, if you're seeing improved driver behaviour, improved safety, maybe that's linked, and the police can comment on that when they come into the next meeting. But yeah, again, because thankfully we've got the low numbers within Caithness, it's difficult to formulate or form any trends in it. But yeah, commonly because trunk roads tend to be higher speed, busier routes. Yeah, we do predominantly these RTCs are on the trunk roads and within the Caithness area. We're looking at the A9 and the A99. That is most commonly because the speeds are higher. there may be numerous bumps within 30-mile-an-hour limits. It's less likely for fire service to get called to them. We do on occasion, and we'll support ambulances required, etc. But it's less common for us to get called to them because there may be less likely people being trapped, thankfully. Yeah, so it's ultimately the trunk roads is more common, and our active work just now is looking at that new drivers, and you've probably seen more on national, well, you've seen the DVLA changes that are forecast. Ultimately, young drivers and older drivers, and that potential that within older drivers, is there any sort of impairment or visual issues? And you'll see that's a national trend, and that's why that's been looked at by DVLA and making changes to the medical, or proposing changes to medical parts of the driver license. But hopefully that answers your query. Yeah.
Thanks very much. If there's no other members to speak on this, thank you very much for your time, Jamie. And are members content to note the report? Yep, fantastic. Thank you very much. So now we'll move on to item 4, which is the Area Roads Capital Programme update. And I'll just hand over to the officer to introduce the report. Thanks.
Hello, thank you very much. Good morning, members. I'm Debbie Sutton, the Chief Officer for Operations and Maintenance, and standing in for Joanne, who's on holiday just now, so I will present the report. And also in attendance is Jonathan Gunn, the Senior Engineer for the area. If there are any questions that I'm not sure of, he'll be able to provide some support to me. So members will see the area roads update on the capital spend for this financial year. We have the programme includes in the appendix the list of projects which have been completed so far and what is planned for the spring after the winter weather hopefully lifts and we get a bit more time before the end of March to spend the remaining funds. I'm happy to take any questions, but I'd like members to note the works completed, note the additional works as listed, and approve the works proposed, which I understand Josie has discussed with members at area business meetings. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Do members have any questions on the Capital Works update at all? No, I'm not seeing it. Oh, Councillor Rees.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Debbie. I think the first thing is basically just after the weather we've just had is again to acknowledge the work that the staff have done in trying to keep the roads open. I know we're still only in January, but it's, you know, it was a remarkable effort, I think, and everybody recognises that. But I wanted to ask, basically in the report, paragraph 3.3 is commendable. It talks about the risk and it simply says that the expenditure doesn't match what is required. The capital spend for this year is 21.5 million across Highland. But the standstill figure we actually require, depending on estimates, is anything from sort of 32 to 35 million. So, you know, we're nowhere near overall Highland Council wide what we need to spend just to stand still. Obviously, Caithness gets some extra funding, and I think the administration should be sort of complimented for finding money, if you like, for Skye and for ourselves, albeit that's at the expense of other areas where the roads are in a better condition. I think that along with health, you know, the state of the roads is probably the single biggest issue for people in the county. What can we do about it? I think in the past, you know, we've had the Jet Patcher, we've had the Pothole Pro, and these have been sort of brought out, and everybody sort of hoped there'll be a solution. And actually, you know, to be honest, I don't actually know if the Jet Patcher is still here or, you know, what it's actually doing. But when we look at this list of roads that are needing fixed, the list just simply gets longer and longer each year and has done for a number of years, and that's the brutal reality. And as I say, that the paragraph in the report is commendable under the risk. It just says simply that we are not spending enough across Highland. There are other things that have been brought forward in the past. I'm thinking in particular, maybe 3-4 years ago, there was a lot of talk about an active travel scheme from Janetstown into Thurso, and it, literally people say to me, what's happened? And the answer is on the ground. I don't think anything's happened with it. So I think what we need to do is the council, particularly obviously administration, be upfront with the public about the fact we're not catching up the list. Each year we look at this list, it gets longer and longer. I think also there's nothing, Debbie, you or Jonathan or me really can do about this apart from point it out, is that there's a public perception that money sometimes is not being spent correctly. And this is not actually Highland Council money, but the fixed speed camera scheme that's been in place now for 2 years from Force to Thurso. We need to speak in plain English. People simply say the sums of money involved there, could they not have been spent better locally? And it's, Highland Council can say truthfully that this is not our money. But I think there's a bigger strategic point, is that if the council were trusted more, or if more money was delegated to be spent locally on the things that we think are important. For example, if we could stop the practice of putting coal tar into potholes and having the proper equipment to do them properly, I think that's what most of us would say. And it's not my ward, but there is public people saying the scheme in Wick Town Centre, maybe it will work out to be a good use of 2.1 million. But I definitely think it's sort of, people don't really understand this. Somebody said to me the other day in Thurso, a constituent, that she had a particular pet pothole that she watched. And I asked her rather sort of lightly, where was this pothole? I'm going to be absolutely upfront, it's at the way in. And it turned out it's a pothole that I watch. And if you go and look at it over the years, it's been patched, and it's got about 5 or 6 different colours of tarmac in the pothole, as each time our hardworking crews have tried to fix it. But the point is, I just think we can't, it's difficult for us to go on like this doing these temporary repairs, because the public is seeing, especially during hard weather like we've got just now, it's creating an awful lot more work. So I'd actually, Debbie, it's a bit, asking you to solve this. I know you can't, but it requires more money for better equipment, more staff, and it needs to be on a much longer term basis. And I just think, we could just remain silent, but if you go back over the last 3, 4, 5 years, the list of road repairs is just getting longer and longer in Caithness, despite the extra money. And again, I pay credit to the administration for dredging up this bit of extra money from other parts of Highland, but it's just not enough. And I don't have the answers, but I do think what the council needs to do is just be upfront about the fact we haven't got enough money. And it doesn't matter how hard the guys are working at the depots, it's an uphill struggle. And providing we're honest about it with the public, I think we need to be in, so the Jet Patcher, the Pothole Pro, I don't know if they're actually in use or not, but just need to somehow face reality and try and all work together on it as best we can. Thanks, Chair. Sorry.
Thanks very much. I've got Councillor McEwen, followed by Councillor Rosie.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks for the report, Debbie, and Jonathan, I know you're there as well. It is a bit concerning. The list is getting longer and longer and longer. We don't seem to even be holding our own on it. And with the bad weather, a lot of the potholes that were filled are maintained, are all opening back up again. So it is a bit worrying. We obviously don't have enough money for these roads, but all credit to the road workers. I mean, they're actually working flat out. And I just sometimes wonder, could some of the money be spent on more staff? Because there just doesn't seem to be enough workers to keep up with this work. And then we have to end up subcontracting to spend the money. I'd like Matthew, I know the perception of the public regarding the Wick redevelopment of the roads and the over 2 million's been spent, and trying to actually tell the public it's not Highland Council money, it's Transport Scotland, and if we didn't do something with it, it would go to another town. I don't think sometimes they can get their head around it's roads money, so why can it not be spent in other parts of the roads? But we're working on that. But the list, we're not holding our own in this list. It's getting longer and longer and longer. But I would like to know where the Jet pothole and the Jet Patcher and the pro pothole is. And also a concern up here is the white lines and double yellow lines. I've been on, and I know it can't go on, they can't be when there's salt in the road, which is fine. But we had major parts of the road repaired in the summer last year and everything, better weather, and they're still no white lined. And with the dark nights, then I mean it's really quite dangerous driving these roads, especially when the weather's bad. So I would like to know how many of these jet patchers, pro potholers, and white liners machines the council actually has, and where they're based. Thank you. Oh, and also how much money we're allowed to spend before the end of March. Thank you.
I'll let you just come in there, Debbie, because we have a lot of questions in those first two.
Yes, that's fine. Thanks very much, Chair. With regards to Councillor Rees and the comments regarding budget and you know, the current conditions, and I think we're no matter how much money you give us, there would still be a list of roads that require treatment. So you know, we understand that we're trying to prioritise, and that's why we use the funds, and they're discussed with members about where the priorities lie and how we can best make use of the funds that we do have available to us. Obviously, officers are also delighted with the additional funds that have been made available for roads in the last couple of years, and we've been trying to invest that as best we can. The roads redesign project is also ongoing, that you will be aware of, which is looking at you know, how we gather a picture of the current status, and looking at the plan that we can put in place to be able to have a strategy for delivering improvements in the roads across the board. And we're also looking at, with regards to, you know, efficiencies and how that can be best utilised across the areas. I'll need to check with regards to things that, like the active travel scheme in Janetstown. I'm not too sure about that, but I can certainly come back to members after the meeting, unless, of course, Jonathan can come in after me with any further updates. The staffing levels that Councillor McEwen mentioned. So our staffing levels are currently based on our winter maintenance policy and how much staff we require to deliver that. So those staff, when they're not on winter, are then doing other works, including capital works. And so that's kind of where the staffing levels are based at. Potentially they could be increased, I guess. We would have to see how that works. As part of the roads redesign project, there's also the route optimisation software that we're looking to purchase for helping to plan our winter maintenance routes. That's one of the projects within roads redesign that could then identify you know, the need for additional staff to deliver the service, in which case it would improve the overall numbers of staffing that we could have. With regards to the question on the number of jet patchers, pothole pros and liners, that's another thing that I'll have to take away for after this meeting. I don't have that information straight to hand at the moment, but I can certainly get that for you, and where they're based across the various parts of the Highlands. They can be redeployed across areas, so the lining machine, for example, that we have can be used across the areas, but like you say, not in the current weather conditions. And how much money is left to spend for this financial year? The paper was accurate at the time of writing, but obviously there has been some more invoices come in since that was written, and some more works planned. So I think we're around about 500,000 at the moment left to spend before the end of March, and we're hopeful that that will spend. But any reassurance I can give you is that that would carry forward. And that kind of goes into my next item on the agenda, which is next year's programme, but there would be carry forward if there is anything that hasn't been spent by the end of this financial year. I think that was all the questions, because a lot of Councillor Rees's points were kind of comments rather than specific questions, I think. But if there's anything I've missed there, and Jonathan, I don't know if you want to add anything to what I've said.
Yeah, mainly just with regard to why the list gets longer each year. The reality is, 4 or 5 years ago, when we started doing a full list for the councillors, before it used to be a scheme of this is only the roads we're doing, then we started adding more to it so you could see how bad the situation was. And the reality is, we've now got to the point that the roads we're now looking at doing now would be classed as trivial 5 years ago in comparison to how bad some of the roads was then. So the long list, a lot of them are, in reality, they're still probably 3 or 4 years away from actually needing that work done. yes, they're maybe not very pleasant to drive on. There might be a bit of rough surface on them, but it's the technical team is building up the overall inventory and the condition of how all our roads is. That's why the list is getting longer. And the reality is, when we compare it with the insurance claims have come down drastically this summer in comparison to what we've had for the last few years, just as a testament to the amount of roads we've resurfaced, like particularly in the last 52 weeks, really.
Thanks. I've got Councillor Gunn followed by Councillor Bremner.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, this is a real problem. It's the top of the list for people's concerns as a condition of the road. And I think we were at a meeting just the other day, and the numbers are definitely going up. And I think the road inspector was out and he found another 400 defects, not necessarily all potholes, but there are defects that need to be done. So the list just goes on and on. It's a real problem. And I think the weather that we had too, every time there's frost and ice, it makes it worse. I think it's worth reminding the public that in Caithness we have almost 500 miles of road that the team look after. There's only 20, I understand, that's in the team, and if you take, even when the snow's there, we've got 10 gritters are out, 500 miles, that's about the same distance as Thurso to Leeds. You know, it's an incredible stretch of roads. And Bayer Scotland, they have 80 miles, and they have, I think, 3 gritters, but they work 24/7. You know, so it's really a task that's just going to grow and grow and grow. I don't know what the answer is, apart from more money, more equipment, and more people out there working. But you know, they do a fantastic job, and I just like to thank the work they were doing, especially during the bad weather. But of course now, any decent weather, they're out on road repairs, so they've a double challenge there. So, as I said, I don't know what the answer is apart from a huge amount of money and people, but thanks very much.
Thanks very much. And Councillor Bremner.
Thanks very much, and thanks for the thanks for the report. Just a note, on the 16th of May 2018, in the road structural maintenance report that was presented to the Caithness Area Committee at that time, I think I was a councillor of not even a year at that time. If you look at, and this was planted in my brain at the time, section 3.2, it said, the annual budget for structural maintenance, which is what we're looking at here just now, and the annual budget for structural maintenance works has been in the order of £750,000, which means the current list, as it was presented to members at that time, could constitute 2 years of work. What it then said was, 3.3, it is the intention to continually update this list by adding to it and adjusting priorities so that an updated rolling programme of works can be published every year in each new year to eliminate the risk of the structural programme starting before gaining full area committee agreement. So what we committed to back then in 2018 was to continually populate the list that we currently see just now. It's a planned maintenance list. Everything, and I'm not making excuses, but the fact is we've got to see this list in the context that it's there, and that is that it's a planned maintenance list. I've said it before. If you look at one of the, areas, Bakey Place, where I live, has been on that list for a number of years for surface dressing. And if you looked at the street that I'm on, and you saw somebody surface dressing that right now, you'd be wondering why. Well, it's because it was adopted as a council road at the time that, when 25 years ago. So at some point it's going to be planned, the planned maintenance will be a surface dress so that it doesn't fall apart and land up becoming an inlay and an overlay. And that's what we committed to back then. And to be quite honest, I'll not be happy until I see every road in Caithness actually on a planned maintenance list, because when you have newly surfaced roads in Caithness like we have at the moment, I would expect to see them on a planned maintenance list for when the road actually going to get sealed and surface dressed. And you're only going to know that when you actually see it on a planned maintenance list. So there are many, many roads on this list which are there for planned maintenance. They don't need done absolutely right now, right at this minute, but we see the bigger picture, and that picture has been growing every year, and we committed to that 8 years ago. So I'm glad in some respects that we can see the bigger picture, because as far as I can see in other areas of the Highlands, we don't see that bigger picture. Those lists are nowhere near as long. It's not because the roads are in a better state, it's because that work isn't being done in that area. And that is why I asked for the whole roads picture in the Highlands to be referred to the redesign board, so that we can get some sort of better approach to the planned maintenance of our roads. When I came into Highland Council back then, 750,000 was what we were putting. Was what Caithness got, 750,000, and that was an increase. That was an increase from 650,000. We now get 3.1 million just for Caithness. So we actually have between 4 and 5 times the amount of investment in our capital maintenance programme in 2026 than we did in 2018. So there's a little bit of context behind that. It is never going to be the amount that we could or should be investing, but it has been a lot of progress since then, because we're trying to find the amount of money means it's got to come from somewhere, and and that's our challenge. That's the challenge for the roads redesign review as well. I know that while it's at the roads redesign review, we have the ability to be able to feed into some of the things that Jan was saying, about, and Matthew was saying about, how do we better fix our potholes? How do we better fix them so that we actually resource it properly, and make sure that we don't have to go back to 3, 4, 5 times before it's permanently fixed, because that is ultimately a waste of resource. So I'm looking forward to the outcome of the roads redesign board when it comes to that. In terms of the amount of revenue that we require to be able to undertake the capital, because I think that we can often get muddled up between what's capital and what's revenue. I'm hoping that the redesign board as well will have a look at that. I know that they're looking at revenue and maintenance to be able to balance off both. So, excuse me, I don't know where I got this frog in my throat this morning, but it hasn't been helping me. Maybe it might be over because of the flu that we've had. So yeah, there's a huge amount of money that's been invested in Caithness, and an approach where we know the priorities will change according to the list as it goes up. So a lot to do, but I think we need to make sure that we actually get the context of what we're looking at right at the moment. This is not something, a list that needs done right now, every single one of them. One last point, Debbie, if yourself and Jonathan might reflect on this. In Caithness, because of the lack of investment in our roads over about 20 years prior to the Highland Investment Plan kicking in and ensuring that we now actually have not just 21 or 21.5 million being spent on the Highlands roads, but it will now actually increase. There's a mechanism in there to increase it by a percentage on every year. But that the way that we're actually going to look at that should be in terms of the need of the areas that we've got. And I think that it would be good to be able to get an idea of how and when the redesign board is actually going to deliver on the challenges that some of the members have said there today. There was a couple of other points, but I've forgotten them just now. So thanks very much for that.
Thanks very much, and I'll let you respond there, Deb.
Thanks very much, Chair. I don't think there was any specific questions actually from either of those, other than the point about roads redesign, which Councillor Bremner will know as we are trying to progress at pace now, and there will be another workshop. There's going to be a sort of subgroup meeting, which will involve the members who were previously involved, and then we'll be looking at another workshop to drive forward the changes and to try and introduce some options about how we might consider investment going forward. And that will, like you say, include revenue and capital investment. So I would hope that would be coming, maybe not to the next redesign board, there'll be an update in February, but to the next one after that, which I think will be May.
And just the kind of 2 points that stand out to me are, first of all, why aren't we yet still spending what's being allocated? The fact that the budgets have been increased over the years and finally is warmly welcome, but the fact that in the Caithness we're still not able to spend what's allocated, to me, that remains actually my main concern now, ahead of actually how do we funnel more money into it, because of what's the capacity roadblock. And in terms of what's actually left to spend, but you said about $500,000, and I just copy and pasted the figures from the report into a spreadsheet and added them up. So our total budget was 3.162 million. So far, we've completed 1.354 million worth of works, with £372,000 of outstanding works remaining, which comes to a total spend this year of 1.76 million, which is 1.4 short of what the total allocated amount was. And that's nearly half. And I know you said there's some more invoices to come in, etc. But that we can talk about redesign, we can talk about jet patches, we can talk about all these new fancy things, but to me there seems to be something more simple and more basic that's causing the problem. What is the issue in getting this done? Say if you could wave a magic wand, and next year the budget is doubled to 6 million, would we spend that? I don't think there's really any evidence yet to say that there seems to be some capacity issue. So as far as I see it, I mean, I'd almost like us to stop talking about the new fancy things and actually go a bit back to basics. What are the actual capacity obstacles that are stopping these amounts being spent? And then we design the solutions from there. And the second point come from just observing some of the repairs that I've seen over the last few years. And this came to me over the summer. I was just driving out of Wick through Haster, where there had been, in the year that I was first elected to Wick, 22-23, large resurfacing outside Haster. And then, within 2 years, what was extensive resurfacing was all cracked and subsided, and almost needs done again. So to me, that just asks the question, are the foundations of the roads that we have actually, up to standard? And that seems to be an issue in some place, and other places in the county where you have sort of very lopsided or bumpy roads, there seems to be something, subsided or an issue with the actual foundation of the road. And actually, just tarring over that isn't, is going to only temporarily fix it, and as they are only going to then return. So actually, when we're considering capital works and defects for roads, actually, do we need to look more at foundational work on some of these areas? There's a lot on that, so I'll let Debbie and Jonathan come back to that before I come on to Raymond and Matt.
Hi, Andrew. Just in regard to the works at Haster, there is a structural failure along that side. The road was previously stripped widened sometime in the 90s, with the sheer amount of HGV traffic that's been on it from a whole variety of projects. The edge of the road kept cracking. So actually in the last month or so, we've actually been strengthening the verge to support the edge of the road. And then in one particular section, we're actually digging out the previous strip widening because it wasn't doing onto a suitable foundation. So we've actually got a contractor on site at the moment repairing that section there.
Thanks. And in terms of the actual obstacles in spending the money, what are the things that we're running into? I'm not asking for huge in-depth summit on it, but what are the obstacles that are stopping us spending this money?
Currently at the moment for Caithness is the fact there's one company with a tar plant. The reality is if they have a big scheme on for Bay or someone else, they aren't able for that week or 2 weeks or however long they're working for them to supply the council with tar. And the cost of taking it up from the next nearest one, which is down at Alness, is too high a cost. 2 other quarries in the Caithness are proposing to put in a tar plant, but again, they're the same too. They need to have the confidence in the Highland Council that there's going to be an increased budget for a number of years before they take the significant investment of spending a couple of £1 million putting in a tar plant to ensure they can recover their costs over it. And the other issues we have at the moment is the sheer amount of wind farm works that's going on is taking up all the contractors' time. So we aren't able to put other schemes out. So third-party contractors, there's only one that's interested in doing the tarring that's able to help us out just because of the sheer workload. It comes down to manpower is the ultimate issue across the county, not just Highland Council. It's across the whole Highland area with the amount of engineering works that's going on.
And thank you for that. That's, to me, that's probably that's hugely helpful in understanding what the actual issue is, and if there's not enough tar. And to me, that almost begs the question of, if the issue is so fundamental, there's not physically enough supply to do it, and we want to do more. I think everyone would like to see more done in the area. If there's anything we're talking about at redesign, what are the innovative things we can do to improve this? To me, it would be, well, why doesn't the councillors build a tar plant? Like that to me, that just seems all right. Let's just do that, because right now, businesses, the best business rate loan you can get is 8%. Council can borrow at 5.5%. Don't we just do it? Rather than paying for someone else to do it and then paying for their profit on top. If the demand exists, why doesn't the council just do it? But that's the sort of discussion I think we should be having. But we'll pass on to Raymond and then Matthew.
Yeah, I'm nodding like a donkey here, what Andrew's saying there just now, because that's exactly what is being discussed at the redesign board. It's also been discussed at the, and sorry, this isn't the point I forgot, by the way, Andrew, but thanks for saying that, because it is what's been discussed at the redesign board. We can't keep chucking more amounts of money when we know that there's bound to be resource issues. And being able to get the contractors to be able to get all the tar. We have a tar plant in Sconser. We were even talking about why can't we do one at Janetstown and Thurso, and that's been raised at the monthly roads meeting as well, about kind of solutions that we'd like to see. And in terms of the underspend, I am not aware that even after we get past the winter period, and which brings its own problems, as we've just seen there just now, where parts of roads fall apart, and we have that there's that amount of money that's still available to spend. And I don't know, maybe Jonathan could confirm, but I am not aware that even though when we do have around about $500,000, I think it's been anywhere from $500,000 to 800,000, that we've still had the ability to be able to spend in the last 6 to 7 weeks before we go into the new financial year, and we have actually managed to do that. It's always been a mix of our own roads crews and a contractor being able to do that. So I suppose, Debbie, you're maybe caveating that if there was an underspend, because I'm not aware that we've actually ever done that in Caithness. We have always been on the button with our monthly roads reviews. That's why we have them, because we get regular updates to make sure that we have the confidence of spending that money. But one thing that I wanted us that I was going to mention, and this was the fact is that in that planned maintenance schedule that we see, you'll notice that there's a lot more for surface dressing this year. And surface dressing comes in as we've been ploughing a lot more money into the system here in Caithness. surface dressing, I think, is about it's about a fifth of the cost of fully repairing a road. So the more that we start to have it to spend on surface dressing, protecting the road, the more money you can see how the balance swings round. That we then have we won't be spending so much money on repairing roads in terms of an inlay and an overlay in the future. Therefore, the dial will swing round and a greater balance will return to us in terms of our roads maintenance costs in the future. What we have at the moment is a huge cost of repairing roads that are actually falling apart because of the lack of investment in the past 20 years. But as we continually look to invest, this goes down to that question about what's the ongoing maintenance cost going to be just now. Well, I'd like to see how that could be forecast into the future in terms of how does that swing around from going from the inlays and the overlays to the actual resurfacing and getting back to more of a norm maintenance program of our roads rather than the replacement of our roads because of a lack of investment. And that's also the work that I've actually challenged the redesign board to come up with, because I hear constantly about the standstill maintenance figure, but I don't know what that is actually in respect of. It's other agencies that come up with these figures, but I want the council to be able to come up with a figure itself through its own data systems, through its own forecasting of costs of repair, and that is typically shown when you go from full resurfacing at the cost of, I think it's around about £30 a square metre, Jonathan, to resurfacing a road which is £7 a square metre, and your money goes 5 times further in terms of protecting a road surface than having to replace the road surface. That's why that's all at the redesign board. We need to be more on top of how we're actually planning and preserving our road asset, and having more knowledge ourselves about our own asset. Thanks.
Thank you. And then Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. A couple of things. One of them, if it's okay, etiquette, was actually really a question for Raymond on the Highland investment plan. I have to confess ignorance about the mechanism you've referred to where it may be possible to increase the expenditure, because at the moment the Highland investment plan says that we're going to spend over the next 3 years, I think it's about 61.5 million on the roads, which to an ordinary person on the streets in Wick or Thurso sounds like a mighty big sum of money. But if you take the standstill figure, actually we need to be spending roughly 90 plus million over those 3-year period to maintain the roads in the current condition. And I think that, maybe Debbie or Jonathan correct me, I think the standstill figure is derived from the Scottish Roads Condition Maintenance Survey that is carried out each year, but I'm not 100% certain. So I'm interested to know what the mechanism is in the Highland investment plan, and could it reach the extra expenditure required? And the second point, really, really quickly, is Councillor Gunn, this one's not for you, Raymond, this one's for Jonathan or Debbie. Ron referred to the 400 new faults or issues that have been discovered very, very recently, partly as a result of the bad weather. Those 400 faults are not, I don't think, they don't go on the lists that we've been talking about today. As my query is, how are those 400 new faults, what is the database that they are recorded on, Jonathan? Because I don't think they're all straight roads ones that go on the normal list that we get. And final, just an observation is, but over many years, I've just picked up more and more the point you made, Jonathan, about HGVs. And one of your predecessors, well, actually it wasn't your predecessor, but Mr. Moncrief once said to us at a meeting years ago that one HGV does roughly the damage of 1,000 cars. And I always remember that statistic because I think that goes a long way to explaining, especially with our most rural roads, why they are in such a state. But yeah, if I may, Chair, a really quick question for Raymond, and then just the one about the database for Jonathan. Thank you.
Raymond, you had your hand up briefly. Did you want to come back to that?
Yeah, what I was going to say was it's not the normal protocol to be asking questions of members at the Caithness Area Committee. It's usually normally to officers, and I wouldn't want to break that protocol, not because I don't have the answer, but because that's just that's the way that it normally goes, Matthew. But I think that the reflecting on what you were saying there just now in the mechanisms of the Highland Investment Plan, officers can consider what you were saying there just now and actually come back to you on that if there's queries there about how the Highland Investment Plan will cater for roads going into the future, because it's already been laid out in the council's previous papers. And I'll just in terms of the roads review, a lot of it is actually in there in terms of the focus on planned maintenance and how we can better do that in terms of the money that's actually going towards roads. But in terms of the increasing amounts and what have you, there's an ability to be able to get a better, more factual information from the officers on that, rather than relying on my memory, which, you know, Matthew, is not the best at is not the best at times.
Members, you know, this report was, you know, just the update we do of the main part in the next one in terms of going forward in the next year. So if you have a quick question, Councillor McEwen, I'll let you come in before we'll come back to the officers and go on to the next item. But if it's a longer thing, maybe it's better for the next.
No, it's pretty quick. I just wanted to come back on the 400 and odd new defects. My understanding, this is for your information, Matthew, is a lot of it is to do with not just the new potholes, but signs as well. It's falling down all over the place, you know, so it's the signage as well as.
Okay.
So I was just going to clarify that. Fine, thank you.
Okay. And I was just, Chair, if I may, that was my other question that actually Jonathan didn't get a chance to answer. How are these things like signs and all these other less big projects, where are they all recorded? Thank you.
They're recorded on a system called WDM. That's the Williams Data Management System. So our roads inspectors have a hierarchy of roads. They do the A-class roads, they do them monthly. There's some they do, like a lot of B-class roads are done quarterly, and then most of the U-class roads are done, season U's are done annually. So he has a set criteria of when he does all these roads, and when he goes along, he picks up potholes, drainage, damaged ironwork, damaged signs, missing signs, all that kind of things. And at the end of each day, he uploads them onto a system with a priority, and that is sent to the roads officer then. So some of the really bad potholes might be given 24 hours. Some of the lesser potholes can be 14, 21, or 42 days. And the same for the signage, it can be given a longer time to replace it. And then it's up for the roads officer, in amongst all the tarring and winter maintenance, it's up for him to get his men out to pick off all these other road safety defects to keep the network as safe as we can for everyone. And he'll also pick up the likes of junction markings and all that kind of signs that's missing.
Thank you.
Perfect. Members, if there's no other points or questions there, we'll just come on to the recommendations for this one. So we're asked to note the works completed so far, note the additional works identified, and to approve the works still outstanding for the remainder of the year. So are members content to note and agree those? Seeing nodding heads, that's perfect, that's agreed. So now come on to
Sorry,
item
Chair,
5.
I couldn't get my hand up fast enough.
Sorry, you had a question?
Yeah, is it possible to get clarification that we're agreeing that? But remember, Andrew, when there was a point that was brought up in terms of the audit process of when and if that list varies, because the members that are here over the next year can actually say, well, we think that this priority has, has been superseded by another priority, which has, a road that's broken down in that period of time. Most members here feed that information back. So we've got the ability to be able to agree changes to that list, but it would be coming back for homologation at the Caithness Area Committee. I think Debbie might know what I'm actually on about there. So we're not that the list that we're agreeing here just now just doesn't remain static, and therefore the officers only go by that list and nothing else. Do you know what I mean, Andrew?
I think perhaps maybe looking at a fourth recommendation. I mean, perhaps it's maybe better to do that within the next one if we're talking about going forward in the next plan. I can think of some kind of recommendation around, the ability to vary at committee meetings. It may, I think, require suspension of standing orders, because say if you were to vary something a quarter later, it would be effectively determining a council decision. So, there's definitely ways we can do it. But yeah, I think, especially when you look at the list, where I think it was the #1 capital project this year was ranked 400 and something the previous year. These things aren't static. So I think maybe best to come on to that in the next item, if that's okay.
Fine, thanks, Chair.
Right. So members, now come on to item 5, which is the roads capital programme for 26-27. I'll just pass over to either Debbie or Jonathan to introduce this.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So this is showing the members the indicative programme and indicative budget amount for the coming year's programme prioritised as evidenced. So we're asking for members to approve the rolling programme of capital schemes as listed in Appendix 2. Note that the final area budget will be available after the February 2026 Economy and Infrastructure Committee. And note that the rolling programme may require to be updated once the Scottish Road Maintenance Condition Surveys have been received, which we are anticipating to come in the next couple of weeks. So at the current time, we're looking at an indicative budget for Caithness, including, based on last year's allocations, plus the annual uplift of £3,339,211. And like I say, that is indicative at this stage, because there will be some minor amendments to it potentially, like we discussed, possibly of any over or underspend, and any changes that need to be made when we get the SCRMS figures in. But we would hope that we would be able to bring that back to members and confirm that at your next area committee. And we've got all the information in Appendix 2, which shows the proposed area capital programme. And yes, like has been mentioned in the previous item, that could be subject to change and would be discussed with members at the area business meetings as required if there were certain roads that needed to be bumped up the priority list based on their most recent conditions, or if something were to happen that would need to change the area where they were sitting on the list. So happy to take any questions, and Jonathan again is here to support if there's any answers that he can also provide. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. I'll just open that up to members now. If no one's got anything else to add for the upcoming one, I was just typing an amendment just in the chat there, what I was saying previously, which was to agree to add to the recommendations to allow variations of the priority order by agreement of Caithness committee at future meetings. Councillor Bremner?
Yeah, something like that. I think what we've been doing is most members here come along periodically and occasionally to the monthly roads meeting. That's where the updates and the reflection on this planned maintenance list gets looked at. So if it was the ability for officers then to feed that back to if we can agree here that those variations are within the gift of officers to be able to actually undertake and homologate it either at an area business meeting or something like that, or agree at an area business meeting and then reflect on it at a Caithness area committee meeting. Now that sounds heck of a clumsy, but however you can, I mean, even if it's minuted in this meeting, that's what members have agreed to do, or members it's part of the way that we do things, then I think what you're saying there just now is fine. You're on mute, Andrew.
Maybe it's more agreed for variations of priority rank be made via member meetings throughout the year as needs arise, rather than making it Caithness committee only. But still member meeting. Yeah, I'll just finish typing that and add it in, and we can They should be able to see that.
Yeah, received it, Andrew. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is simply it's not redetermining a committee decision. It's about simply allowing officers to make those decisions, but taking a steer from members. Because I think seeing how wildly some of them have swung through the year makes more sense. Fiona.
Chair, I'm not completely certain if that's a competent decision for the committee to make. I might need to check that. Normally, it would be agreed to delegate a decision to officers in consultation with local members.
Well, that's
if it's not officially at a meeting. Would you feel happy with that, sort of to delegate any variations of priority ranking to officials in consultation with local members?
You're on mute, Andrew.
If that's what's needed to make it all add up, I mean, to me, it's the same thing in the end. Doesn't seem to make a difference yet. Are members content to agree with that point?
Yep.
Right. And just as for the other recommendations for this item, members are asked to agree the rolling programme of capital schemes listed in Appendix 2. Note the area budget will be available after the February 26 E&I meeting, and note the rolling programme may be updated once the road condition survey has been received and the addition of that fourth one that we just said. Members content to agree that?
Yep, agreed.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time, Debbie and Jonathan. So members will now move on to item 6, which is the Community Regeneration Fund assessment of applications. And we've got Mark with us.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. Can you hear me? Excellent. Thank you very much. Ahead of today's meeting, members will have received the committee report together with the application forms and a summary spreadsheet highlighting the outcomes of the technical assessments. Please note that these assessments are undertaken solely on the information that's provided to us by the applicants as part of the application process. Firstly, I need to update members on a slight change to the report and advise that Wick Development Trust have withdrawn their application for funding towards the purchase and installation of a camper clean unit, as they've secured funding from another source. So that now means that we're asking members to consider 4 applications today, totaling £258,898 from the following applicants. So first of all, I have John O'Groats Development Trust, who are seeking £150,000 towards their long-planned destination play park project. The approval of this request would give the project a full funding package and allow them to commence. The project is well supported locally, and that can be reflected in the amount of money which they have raised through fundraising towards it. The Trust are now working with the Highland Council in partnership to deliver this project. The amber scores that are on there relate to the project still partly being in the planning stages and the question of how that project fits into the Highland Council play strategy as a destination type play park. Next, we have an application from Caithness Voluntary Group, who are seeking £43,500. This is for a replacement wheelchair accessible minibus as part of their Caithness rural transport fleet. This minibus is currently the mainstay of the fleet, both in terms of their rural transport service and community hires. However, the accessibility ramp is now defective and the annual maintenance costs are becoming excessive due to the high mileage of the vehicle. The organisation has shown the demand for the service with booking data and demonstrated a clear understanding of their operating costs and their revenue requirements as part of this application. The evidence of support is generally through existing use figures, and the AMBER scores in the value for money and match funding are due to the level of funding request, although the existing minibus that they have will offer some part exchange value. We have another Caithness voluntary group funding application where they're seeking £30,758, which is 80% of the project costs towards a 12-month employment of a third sector support officer. This rule sets out specifically to offer support to third sector and community groups in Caithness in offering organisation health checks, covering such things as their organisational structure, governance, finance, board member training, etc. The application provides strong evidence of need for this type of support and for the demand for that service, which has arisen post-COVID with several charities in the area now on the at-risk register. CVG has 198 member organisations, and they have estimated that they will be able to help between 60 and 70 organisations through this funding window. Finally, we have an application from Leith Arts Centre, who are looking for £34,640 to fund their 2026 Caithness Artists in Residence programme. The Community Regeneration Fund has previously provided part funding for this programme back in 2024. And on this occasion now, Leith Arts Centre had applied to Inspiring Scotland's Creative Communities Fund to fund the project. However, that funding programme received 310 applications, and whilst Leith were in the final shortlist of 40, they missed out as one of the 11 who were successful. The Creative Communities funding team have offered project management and peer support to Leith if they are successful in securing alternative funding for the 2026 programme. The application presents a well-planned project with a clear aim and identified outcomes and outputs from an organisation with a good reputation on delivering their projects. The project scores AMBER for value and match funding as it is 100% request, but does offer some in-kind support from creative communities. So, Chair, in summarising this report, Caithness members are asked today to consider 4 applications with a total grant request of £258,898, with available area funds currently standing at £650,917.95. If members approve these applications, that will leave £392,019.95 remaining for further projects throughout this year. Thank you very much. That's over to you, Chair, now.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And I'll just open it up to members now if there's any comments or questions on the applications we have before us. Not seeing anything. Oh, Councillor Bremner.
Thanks, and thanks to Mark. I know that we have these discussions that take place before this information comes to committee, because that's the nature of the job that we all do in terms of the assessments, and over a period of time, many members get to know a lot of the progress that's going on in the community in terms of some of the projects. I would be content to move to go with the recommendations to say, well, I'd be content to actually support the applications that we have in front of us just now. Can I just make a comment in terms of the applications per se? I noticed, there was some negative press out there about John O'Groats, and if I was to consider the work that's been going on by the John O'Groats Trust and another of other groups in that area, including with their vision in terms of a destination play park, etc., There are other things in that whole area that you can see have been progressed over a period of time, and that is not dissimilar to other areas in Caithness, where many communities are actually actively working together to be able to use funds like the CRF to be able to make a better law and a sustainable law for their community. And I would continue to encourage that. I think this is a really important fund for many communities supporting a lot of activity in their area. That is, and it's typical of what I think it should be used for. So just maybe sometimes the articles that are out there don't often reflect just the efforts that are going on and the improvements that have been made in some of these areas over a period of time. But those of us who live and work here, we can see that. And the difference that there's been in John O'Groats over the past 10, 15 years has been great. And it is providing a better visitor experience, but also a better living experience for many of the people that are there. That's just one example. I'm sure that there are many others. My final point would be that whilst we're approving these applications today, I would also like to say that there are other things that I'd like to speak to you about, Mark. I'm sure there are other councillors on here. I know that Councillor McEwen has spoken in terms of the use of the fund to be able to be a catalyst for other projects in other areas, and it would be good to have a discussion about that and how we can support those projects in other areas through the CRF, and happy to have that conversation with you just as soon as you're available. Thanks.
Thank you. And Councillor McEwen.
Yeah, thanks Mark for this report, and I would hear about the John O'Groats Play Park, the work that's gone on at John O'Groats over the last 10-15 years. It's like night and day for us locals in Caithness as well as visitors. The visitor experience is magic, and they've raised a lot of money as well themselves in various, so they're really hard working. That's that one, so I'm happy to support that. I'm happy to support them all. I just would mention about the CBG, the salary support worker. They need that funding because they do support a lot of third sector charities, and a lot of these third sector charities will actually just fold if they don't have the support of the CBG and filling in quite a lot of application forms for grants or for their charity reports that they've got to put in every year. So if they don't have this support worker, a lot of these charities will fold. They need the advice of the support worker with their treasury reports and different things as well. So I would support that, and also Life. I mean, Life is well known in the area, and all the work they do and what they bring to the area as well. So I'm really happy to support all these grants, and hopefully some more of these projects will come into us as well, because they're all good, and we need to get the word out there to come to the CRF funding for them. But yeah, I'm happy to support them all. They're all excellent. And the bus, the rural bus, I mean, what you can say about it, it's really well used, so it's really needed for the rural communities. But thanks, Mark. Thanks for your work as well.
Thank you very much, members. I'm not seeing anyone else who wishes to speak there, so are members content to agree all the applications before us here today?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a yes. So all those applications are approved. So thank you very much for your time, Mark. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I'd be happy to discuss with members at the next available opportunity how we can promote the Community Regeneration Fund and organisations and applicants coming forward.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks very much. So Fiona, if you could just let the two members know that the item's over and we're just moving on to the next.
I've messaged them both, and maybe I think that Councillor Rees is still in the meeting, but we might want to wait. Oh, there's Councillor Mackay's back as well, so I think we're good to go.
So now we'll go on to item 7, which is the garage rents. I believe we have Lachie MacDonald with us here. Yes, he's just there.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. My name is Lachie MacDonald. I'm the repairs delivery manager for repairs delivery, and I've just taken on responsibility for Caithness. I have the housing revenue account garage rent report. The report provides information on the garage rents in Caithness and invites the committee to set rent levels for garage and garage sites held on the housing revenue account for 26-27. The recommendations for the committee: they are invited to agree the level of rent increase to apply for Caithness garages and garage sites. If I can draw your attention to item 7 sets out what there was consultation went out to the tenants on 8%, 9% and 10%, and the tables in 7.2 set out what these various increases mean in terms of rent and also the revenue raised for the 9 and the 10%. I'm happy to take any questions, members.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bremner.
Just for the public record, Lachie, would you give us here in terms of, because while we're in this meeting, not everybody sees the papers, what the rental, the garage rental actually goes to towards when it's collected? Thanks.
It goes towards the Councillor Bremner. It goes towards it. In the paper, it says it'll go towards increasing the revenue repairs budget for garages.
Thank you, Chair. If I can come back in now that he's answered my question, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's really important that folks know that exactly where the money is going, and I know that they can't read the paper, but we don't have it presented on screen, so it was good to have that answer. The paper in front of us has proposals of a rent increase of 8%, 9% and 10%. If you actually look at the 10%, I'm talking about garages in Ward 3 in particular, where the 10% rent increase with VAT exempt which is council tenants, garage sites in Ward 2 is a weekly rent of £2.05 with a weekly increase of 20 pence going to £2.25. Garage sites, garages in Ward 3 would go from £13.38 to £14.72, which is a weekly increase of £1.34. The 10% increase VAT payable for non-council tenants in Ward 3 would be an increase of £1.58 per week for garages, and for sites would be 25 pence. I don't think that is a particularly big burden if we know that we're going to actually see that reinvested into the garage sites, because it's we know that our garage sites and garages, we know that it's really difficult to be able to maintain and upkeep these garages. We've had a focus on them for quite some time, and trying to come up with innovative ways to be able to deal with the state of the garage estate. So I wouldn't be averse to actually considering a 10% increase as proposed in the papers, but I thought it was important that we actually put the figures out there so that folks know what the level of increase is in terms of the in terms of the pot that it's going to and the benefit we could actually get from it. Thanks.
Thank you. Just before I bring some more members in, have you got some more information in terms of what the repairs backlog is? What amount is needed? Because when I saw this, when I saw the 3 options, they all seemed high. So that to me indicated there's a problem that needs to be dealt with, but there isn't really anything in the report that says, this is the amount of repairs that will be needed. And at the end of the day, I don't believe government should be charging more than it needs to do what it needs to do. So if we're going to be increasing, all three options are high. What is the sort of bill of repairs that we're actually looking at? I'm just trying to weigh up what's the evidence in numbers and pounds to say that this is definitively needed. It's always nice to have more money, but how is it going to be? I'm just trying to get a better picture for members on that.
Councillor Javi, I don't have that information to hand on the expenditure in garages this year to date or the backlog, but in order to stay in line with inflation, there has been we need the rise to materials are going up in cost. Subcontractors' prices are going up in cost, and we need to stay abreast of that. If we fail to do that and we underinvest in our garages, then they're going to deteriorate and they're going to be unlayable. But I don't have figures. I don't have figures to hand that you've asked for. But I'm happy to go away and get that figures and come back to you.
Yeah, I mean, just you say that. I mean, what you say, it's true. Inflation is there. Materials go up, costs go up. That's fine. But to agree it's such a big number. Personally, I want to see what that is, and that whatever option I agree to, and what members of this committee agree to, that's evidence based. And if we don't have that information, I'm a little bit uncomfortable agreeing or taking this item at committee today. And my gut instinct would be to potentially defer this item or look at an agreement to get the figures and agree via email if it's possible to delegate. But I just feel uncomfortable agreeing to a budgetary increase without knowing the numbers of why that's needed. Are members potentially content to consider deferring it? Because it's a big increase, and I don't really feel comfortable agreeing a budget when we don't know what it's being spent on. Councillor Bremner?
I see that I'm third in line, Chair. You've got Councillor McEwen and Councillor Rosie looking to comment.
I've not got their hands on. I've not got their hands on my screen. I've only got yours. You say
they've been waiting for quite some time, actually.
Yeah.
That's not on my screen. Councillor McEwen, then.
Yeah, thanks for that. I'm certainly with you in this, Andrew, because I would like to know what maintenance has been carried out this year on our garage estate, because going about and looking at the state of the garages, it's I don't see any maintenance has been on in any of the garages. And also I'd like to know how many returns in the consultation come back, agreeing to this 10%. And was there something on the consultation for comments or anything as well? That would be interesting. But I would like to know what maintenance has been spent in the wards before I would agree to an increase. Because there's no point in us agreeing to an increase and then don't know what maintenance that they're going to be going forward, or what maintenance has been carried out. I would actually say in the last 3 or 4 years, because I don't think there is any maintenance been carried out in any of our garages. But I'm happy to be proved wrong. Thank you. But I would be happy to defer it until we got more information. Thanks, Andrew.
Councillor Rosie.
Thank you, Andrew. Apologies again, my camera's not working for some reason. But I don't have any great problem if you want to wait and get some more information, but I'm always mindful of our council tenant forums that we have. Anyone that I've attended, there's always a desire and a wish from tenants to ensure that there is maintenance carried out. There, my experience has been that there have been reports provided there. I know that's a very different thing, but generally I've found that tenants forum have welcomed investment in the garages. So I would tend to favour the proposal made by Councillor Bremner, but more than I don't have an issue in waiting to get some more information if that's a general view. Thank you.
Councillor Bremner again.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks. I just thought it would be mannerful of me to wait my turn. I totally get your point, Andrew. I was actually speaking mainly about Ward 3. That wasn't to ignore Ward 2 or split hairs, but in terms of the garage estate that we have in Ward 3, and particularly in the town, we have been looking at the garage estate there over the past 2-3 years at the housing monthly meeting. We've had a focus on garages, in particular in the Loch Street area. You might know about that, and also about Dunnet. We looked at the environmental budget for the garages that were also up at the top of Owen Place. Councillor McEwen also is knowledgeable of these projects. And the only way, that we're going to be able to invest in the estate and improve it, or actually stop these garages from coming out of being able to be used because they fall into disrepair. But there's a far bigger question here, as Lachie probably knows, because many of the garages are not fit for purpose in terms of being able to store, house cars of modern size. And that's one of the reasons behind my proposals, although it doesn't, you're right, it doesn't actually state to what extent it goes into the maintenance of the current garage estate, nor what is it that we actually need as a standstill figure to be able to, for what Lachie was talking about there just now, and that is the repairs and maintenance costs go up. Well, if that's the case, what is the standstill the cost of a rise and being able to maintain that position? And I would imagine that the garage owners would have been consulted on that. So that's the reasoning behind my consideration for the 10% rise at £1.20 a week and 20 pence or 25 pence a week. Whilst that is seen as that could be seen as considerable in terms of the current weekly rent, in terms of what the potential for the investment in the garage estate is, and looking at some of the projects that we've been trying to move forward in Ward 3, I think that's the basis on why I was proposing that. But if you're looking to get more information in terms of what the standstill cost is in terms of repairs and maintenance, if you're looking for understanding what it would be, what we have spent on in terms of the repair and maintenance of the garage estate in Wards 2 and 3, and what that's going to look like going forward, yeah, if that information is required by members before they feel that they can make a decision, then that's something that you would be. It's a reasonable request if you ask me. But I don't know. Are we in a position to be able to do that just now, or is there a legal obligation to be able to make some sort of recommendation or proposal before a certain date and time? And if that's the case, when would we be looking to review that? Thanks, Andrew.
As far as I believe it falls within the standard local government financing regulations, whereby we are legally obligated to set these budgets by the 4th or 5th of April. So it's simply that a decision needs to be made legally on both HRA and council budgets by those dates.
So would we need a special meeting then?
Yeah, so it may very well be that I'm just trying to find the calendar, but the next one is, but bearing in mind it is a very short item. It's not going to be a very long thing. I'm just particularly concerned about agreeing something based on anecdotal evidence. I mean, we all have anecdotal evidence of people having issues with garages, but it's when we're agreeing to increase the rates of everybody. I just want to see what is the outstanding repair bill across the estate, and how this will meet it, because it may very well be, it will be 10% not enough. Like, I'm not opposed to increases. I need to see the evidence basis for what we're agreeing an increase to anything beyond just anecdotal. It would be nice to have more money. There's cost pressures. We can do more. I need to see what we're going to be getting for that. Councillor Rees?
Yeah, thank you. I've got some sympathy for Raymond's sort of point of view. Someone's mentioned the width of vehicles, because if we're going to do repairs to garages or whatever it is, and I'm interested to get Lucky's view on this, but vehicles are getting wider and wider, bigger and bigger. So if we were to do some substantial repairs to some of the garages, in 10 years' time, what's going to be the size of vehicles then? And I mean, probably none of us really know, but we know the trend is vehicles are getting wider as well as longer and heavier. So going on to Councillor McEwen's point is, I mean, can Lucky advise us based in the broadest terms, whether it's Ward 2 or Ward 3, in the last 3-4 years, what repairs have we done? Because if we're going to be asking for extra money, people on the street are just going to say either, well, that's reasonable because the council have done this, that and the other to improve the stock, or the council have done very little, therefore it's not reasonable. So if it was possible to get a bit more information on that even today, that would be helpful. But in the broadest terms, I think it was Raymond again talked about the standstill figures, and that seems to me a really sort of basic, a key kind of fundamental point. So if we don't know that, it seems to me, Chair, what you're proposing is frankly fair and reasonable, as before we slap a big increase on. I totally understand the reasons for putting an increase on, looking to the future, but before we do that, we should arm ourselves with information, I think. And it may be Lucky's got that. Maybe he can tell us some of that now. I don't know.
Councillor Rees, unfortunately, I don't have that information at hand.
Okay.
What I can say is, in other areas, we've undertaken a review of the garages, and we've had a look at them, seen which are fit for purpose, which are worth investing in, which ones maybe need to be demolished, and we've done that, and we've gone through and we've put a figure on that. So, like, that garage is need X amount of money spent, and we produced a report. As far as I'm aware, that's not been done in Caithness yet. In real terms, in terms of 8% increase in Ward 2, that translates to an additional revenue of 7,125. In Ward 3, it's 10,440. A 9% increase translates to an 8,000 in Ward 2 and £15. Ward 3 is an additional 11,745. And in real terms, 10%, Ward 2 is an increase of 8,906. And in Ward 3 is an increase of £13,050. To put that in the context, that's like 13 garage doors.
I think that's put it perfectly in perspective, Lucky. Thank you. I think we do need a bit more info on this.
Yeah, I'm happy to go away and come back to members with the information requested.
Councillor Gunn?
Yeah, I think I'm right in saying that the Caithness rents are higher than the rest of the Highland area by a couple of £. So if we are going to increase, like whatever has been saying, we need to justify it. I think I'm right in saying that, Lucky, we are above the average.
To be honest, rents and my forte, would you call it? So I wouldn't be able to comment on that, but I'm happy to find that out for you.
I think I did see it in the report, but I might be wrong. Thanks.
Thank you. Members, I'm going to propose that we defer this item to either the next Caithness committee or a special meeting if legal timeframes require us to do so, to seek more information on what the outstanding repair bill is and what this is going to get us. If there is an issue, it needs evidence. So if that work could be done to evidence what the outstanding bills are, what just put some numbers to the things that have been said, that would be great. Are members content to agree that deferral?
Yes.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thanks very much. So now move on to item 8, which is the housing repairs and capital report, and I'll pass back to Lackey to introduce that. Thanks.
Okay. The report provides information on how the housing services performed in relation to social housing charter and other performance indicators from the 1st of April to the 31st of December, so 3 quarters.
Okay.
Members are asked to note the information provided. I'll draw members' attention to 6.4. Members, they apologise. There's an item seems to be missing at 6.3, which is a table of performance for emergency repairs. I can clarify that the performance for Ward 2 for emergency repairs is 2.2 hours, which is better. Core 1 was 3.2, then Core 2 was 2.7, so the trend is improving performance. And Ward 3, Wick and East Caithness, is 2.7 hours. And the target is 12 hours, so it's well within the targets. I'd then draw members' attention to 6.6, which is a performance for a non-emergency repairs. The target is 8.9 days. The average for quarter 3 for Ward 2, Thurso and Northwest Caithness is 6.7 days. And in Wick and East Caithness, 7.5 days. So again, well within the target of 8.9 days. I would then draw members' attention to 7.2, which is the average relet times. And again, there's an improving trend there. For Ward 2, the average report is 50.6 days. And for Ward 3 is 37.8 days, well within the target of 55.6 days. And then to go on the capital programme, which sets out basically the programmes, the capital heating programmes and roofing. I would draw your attention to CSH at 8.2 CSH 25001. It's a roofing contract. It has to go back out to tender because the tender that was received was way above the budget and wasn't reflective. So they're going to go back out to tender. Any questions?
Thanks very much. I'll now open it to any questions for members. Not seeing any hands there. So are members content to note the housing performance report? That's noted. Thanks very much. Thank you very much for your time, Lackey. I'll now move on to first one, the item 10A.
Thank you.
I believe we have, is it? Oh, sorry, I'm skipping one here. Sorry, item 9 is the Wick Street design. We have Ross and Neil down to present the report. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not seeing Neil having joined the call, so I will not hold the committee up and just he's just saying he's joining. So the reason for the paper today is because the 2 raised tables as part of the Wick Street design have been through their statutory consultation and have one outstanding objection, which we need members to consider so that this can be approved to go ahead, or we will need to remove them from the design works. The street design works have been through kind of wider public consultation through the works, but this element is purely for the statutory consultation regarded to the raised tables that are on the A99. The one objection you will see in the table, which I've lost, sorry. That's my fault, pulled up the wrong page, is on the grounds that it'll affect the loading and unloading outside a property on the A99. Now, there is no significant change to the amount of space that the crossing is going to take up, in that, you know, there are already 2 crossings on that road, which nobody in the can already park. You can't park across a drop curb anyway, under legislation, regardless of the double yellow lines. For loading and unloading, you can't block a dropped curb for the purposes of pedestrian crossing. Although the pedestrian crossing location will be moving slightly, it doesn't significantly change the amount of loading and unloading space on the A99 in Wick, which is why we feel that, or we would recommend that this be approved and we be allowed to carry on with the works. The objections and the summary have been included in the appendixes for members' perusal, and I will now ask if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. I'll just open it to members there. Any questions on this point? Councillor McEwen.
Yeah, thanks for that, Neil. It's more a comment than anything. You do know they're still going to park there. Especially, I'm going to speak about taxis. Taxis are my biggest bugbear. They park outside the Indian takeaway, and if you give them drop-down curbs, they're just going to park up on it. There was a lot of objections to the removal of the kind of slightly lay-by bit at the butcher's shop, and I mean that's went ahead and it's looking very neat and tidy. Actually, it is looking very neat and tidy. I know you say, I was told at one point it was for the safety of pedestrians. Well, unfortunately at the moment we don't have a lot of pedestrians walking the streets of Wick, but I will say at night, if you go down Bridge Street, there are cars parked on both sides of the road. So whether this will prevent that or not, I have my doubts. But anyway, once it's done, I'm sure it'll look lovely. I'm sure that everybody will then appreciate it. But it is the loading and unloading along Bridge Street. But I understand that they should be able to, correct me if I'm wrong, come down, you know, the precinct and reverse up back Bridge Street to unload, because they'll not be able to go, in off Bridge Street and back Bridge Street, but they should be able to come along the High Street precinct and reverse along there for loading and unloading. I'm thinking into the shops that have back doors all there, and I am so. But correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm just observing, once it's done, it'll be absolutely fine, and they'll forget about all the issues and different things, because the bit that they have finished is really looking nice and neat and tidy. I'm actually looking out at the Market Square at the moment, and it's a total mess, but hey ho, that will be fine when it's finished, because there was issues with underground cables and wiring and everything there. So I would actually carry on with the proposed original works. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor.
My turn to agree with Councillor McEwen. There you go, Jan.
I know.
If you actually look back at the history of this, yeah, you can see a lot of comments on social media But the history of this has been fully consulted the whole way along the road since 2017. The submission, and thanks for the summary in the paper, because it kind of covers all of that. And it's not the case of, well, folks should have made the representation at that time. Many did. We went from the concept to the design concept to the final concept, and at each time we attracted funding to be able to go through all of those processes, and each time we had to go through consultations at that time. And unfortunately, COVID comes along, and quite a number of people forget that actually this is just the continuation of the process that was kicked off back in 2017, 2018. It doesn't mean to say that, that any concerns, legitimate concerns, should be dismissed, especially considering that spades are in the ground now. And I hope that that message, gets out there, that there is an officer that the council has as part of the team, working with the site contractor, working with the community council, and taking on board a lot of the comments that have been made. I think that Jan's right. I think that a lot of I saw a picture being taken, and of just the block work being done for one of the features that's going to be in the middle of the market square, just being stuck up online, and the amount of negative comments that are on that. And I think that's unfair in terms of the whole design concept and what it should look like at the end. I think Jan's right in saying that once you start seeing it completing, you'll see what a difference it will make. It's part of that bigger picture in terms of the tying in from the harbour to the town centre, and to improving that whole area, and to acting as a catalyst to try and encourage and attract other development and other commercial interest into the area. The council and any other agency that I'm aware of couldn't afford £2.6 million of an investment, especially given the fact that in previous conversations we've said that this has come to Wick. It hasn't gone anywhere else. And if Wick didn't get it, then someplace else would have. So there are things that we have to look out for in terms of abuse of parking and what have you, but we don't want to we don't want to be inhibiting a commercial business that's already existing on the street. We want to work with those. I would like to see us working with those businesses and making sure that they are not adversely affected by something that we're actually looking to put in place that's going to help so many people. The raised table was always considered to be able to reduce speeds going around that corner. The other thing about it was that the not just putting in the raised table, but actually making sure that it was a level walking space for anybody that had prams or wheelchairs or anything similar. And I think that once it's finished, and believe me, we will be looking to make sure that it looks absolutely fantastic. We won't be looking for roads that look as though they've been newly set down, then dug up, and you can clearly see that they've been dug up and what have you. We will be looking for it to look absolutely perfect. But while we're in this transition period, it may not be convincing like that. But I think we go with what we've got. It was well determined, and let's work with the businesses and the folks in the street to be able to make sure that this is the best experience that we've had in Wick in a long time. So I agree with Councillor McEwen on this one. Thanks.
Thanks very much.
Andrew, can I come back in here, because I think we have to reiterate that the contractor is working really well with the businesses and the councillors and the community council here on this one. I mean, he really is taking everything on board, and he will, I am sure, because it's such a well respected contractor that's doing it, and he is a local contractor, which is a plus as well, that he will make sure it is done to a very high standard. So yeah, and it is hoped that maybe it will bring investment into the town centre. As everybody, I keep telling everybody, the councillors can't bring people into the shops and everything, but it is hoped that it might bring some investment into the town centre as well. So live in hope. and it might also make some of the local people, you know, paint up or improve their facilities as well. Thank you. Well, I would hope. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think, in some of, you know, I've visited a lot of cities, and this sort of design, to me, you know, it works when you sort of, there's a lot of ways to do it wrong, and I actually think, you know, as much as I've criticised a lot of these schemes in the past, I think how it's being executed here is pretty good. It's, you know, it creates a real focal point on the area of the centre that matters, and it's about, you know, narrowing that road and, you know, giving sort of that greater priority, so it does feel, you know, more welcoming for pedestrians. And when you have these sort of level access, you know, from one side to the other, it just changes, you know, the nature of what it is, from being, you know, something where you just drive through to something you actually maneuver about. You know, those sort of layouts are, you know, they are fundamentally good for business, and all the kind of examples I know, you say Altrincham, etc. These sort of things are proven to work. Although I do have, you know, some sympathy with the objector in terms of, you know, losing some space. And to me, the part that stands out is, you know, how large the cycle part is at the traffic lights. Is that, you know, something that's strictly needed within designing it? Because, you know, looking at the scale of it, like that, just the sort of cycle bit at this for the stop line from the traffic lights, you know, that's taking up, you know, a whole shop width on its own. So, you know, there is there is a modest loss of loading space, so I can sympathise with that. I just I don't agree that it's a case of, you know, that the tables have to go. I think they bring something to the character of it that's fundamentally good to footfall. But is that cycle stop? I don't know what you call it. The cycle stop line. Yeah, you know, is that absolutely required?
They're not absolutely required. I would recommend them in a place like this, because you've got such a tight corner with, you know, not the best visibility. You want to give those cyclists a little bit of head start. You want to be able to let them get in front of traffic to get round that corner before someone can squeeze them out. It's the stop line, and it's the area in front of the stop line. The stop line wouldn't really move much. You'd maybe gain a metre if we were to move the stop line. It wouldn't be significant change to where the stop line would be, removing the advanced, because we still wouldn't have a car stop line hard against the edge of the ramp, because obviously you want to allow cars to have a rolling start at the ramp. For the raised table, you don't want them at a dead stop right at the point where it transitions, because if you get kind of any kind of slippy conditions or anything like that, it then would pose a problem. Although they're not particularly steep ramps, we do like to kind of allow vehicles a rolling start at them. So you wouldn't actually gain a significant amount of space for the safety benefit that those advanced stop lines would provide to a cyclist. I would probably recommend they remain. But if we need to look at it, you know, and we can go back and look, but it wouldn't make a substantial difference to the amount of space you're going to lose or gain back to potential loading.
Okay, so yeah, that makes sense. You say, especially when you don't want to up against it, because I mean, maybe it's as a point of scale. You say if that's going to be, you know, a metre advanced stop, okay.
So
that's fine, but it just looks like it's like 3 or 4 meters long on the picture. It's like, grief.
It'll be about, I'm just looking, it's probably about 2.5 meters in length. It won't be significantly long, but I'll double check what the measurements are and make sure it's the minimum it can be, if that makes sense.
Yes. I think that would be, you know, I can, you know, appreciate the points he's making. I just don't think the tables, the one. So yeah, if the advanced stop could be the minimum, it's you know, required to be. I think, you know, that might help alleviate some concerns, because, you know, that it does look like a big block on the map. Not seeing any other members with any questions there. So
Andrew,
turning to
Andrew, sorry to interrupt you. Could you come back and actually answer my question about the loading if the vehicles come along the market square, and are they able to reverse up to unload in Backbridge Street?
I will confess, Neil may be able to answer. I was pulled into this fairly last minute because Lisa's off. She'd prepared the paper and written the paper, and because the consultation was on the raised tables, I hadn't looked at the back street. I know there was a one-way order on that road previously. Yeah. It's now been stopped up. Technically, there should be nothing stopping someone reversing up there, but I don't know if they've stopped up the top end as well. At the High Street end, so hopefully Neil can come back on that, being more familiar with the design. But there is also nothing preventing them loading in at the front apart from over the dropped curb. Yeah. But Neil, have you got?
Thanks, Ross, and thank you, Councillor McEwen. This has never been raised as an issue, so I don't. And as Ross was saying, this is not on the radar for today's discussion. Councillor McEwen, if there is an issue, then as Councillor Bremner said, that we have a liaison officer on site that working with GMR Henderson's, and more than happy for business to contact them. There's an email address and there's actually a contact for GMR Henderson as well. So if it is an issue, then please ask them to get in touch. But I haven't heard it being raised before.
Councillor Bremner.
Can we just have clarification? Are we actually looking? I mean, as I understand it, there is no RTO in place that would that currently restricts. So, are we just talking about the design and the installation of furniture, etc., as being the issue here that would be the problem? Okay. What are we actually talking about being the restriction to be able to reverse up Backbridge Street here? Because as I understand it, there's no RTO, Ross, that's in place that would actually restrict that. So. Is it just a concern that's being raised and therefore something that can be worked through with by the officer and the contractor at the moment, rather than having any kind of material impact on the delivery of the actual project? I would think it's the former rather than the latter. Thanks.
Yeah, so as I say, if there is no furniture in the way on the design, my problem is I'm not familiar enough with the design at the top end of the High Street end to know if they've got any street furniture. It doesn't look like it on the drawings. Preventing someone reversing up there. I would imagine it's fine, but because I'm not familiar enough with the scheme, there's not a TRO restriction in stopping someone reversing down there, as far as I'm aware, because it was stopped up at the other end, at the A99 end. But I would need to confirm that, because I'm sorry, I just don't have the information, because it wasn't the purpose of this paper. I didn't.
That's okay. That's okay.
I didn't pull that up as well, but I can certainly confirm it, fairly quickly with the design team and look at the traffic order for the stopping up. But it would be after the meeting. I can follow up with an email.
That'd be
Can we just leave that? Yeah. Can we just leave that to delegated builders? Yeah. Just leave that to the officers. Okay.
So just turn to recommendations, member. We've got 3 here. So we're being asked to note the background, consider the objection made, and subject to that, to approve the installation of the 2 raised tables in question, just subject to the sort of, addition there that the advanced stop be at the small size that it can be. Are members content to agree those?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. Let's go ahead with that. Councillor Bremner?
Yeah, can I just submit my apologies from here on in, and I'll bid goodbye to you all. I have other engagements for the rest of the day, but it was good. I'm glad I managed to join for the period that I've managed to join for. Take care, everybody. Thanks very much, Chair.
Bye.
Thanks. Good. So members, we now move on to items 10A and B, and see we have Catherine here. I see on the screen just there. So I'll just hand over to Catherine to introduce the reports. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. And thank you very much for inviting me to come along today. Can I just check, first of all, are you happy for me to go through both reports, or would you rather I pause after one for comment?
I think you can do both. They're on the, that's fine.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so firstly, an apology. The formatting has gone slightly awry with the reports. I think that's mainly due to the timing and the fact that people are away over Christmas. Fiona's aware, and we'll make sure it's rectified for next time, and we'll resubmit these reports in the correct format so you get them. So the first report I have is an update of key information in relation to the schools within the Thurso ASG. It provides useful updated links to further information, and please note that it's for information from 23-24. We haven't got the more up-to-date information yet, so I believe that's coming soon. So in this ASG, we have primary schools that cover 783 pupils, and ELCs, which serve 194 children, with 144 being in local authority settings and 15 partner settings as per the September census. And the secondary Thurso High School serves 707 young people. There's a lot of information in the report, and if you have specific questions about individual schools, I would be really happy to go and find further information for you and to invite any head teachers to your area business meetings. You'll see that for the Thurso ESG, we've had quite a few of the schools inspected within the last 5 years. So Castletown, Crossroads, Pennyland and Ray have all been visited by HMIE. In terms of attendance, so the average attendance for the primary schools is 93.21%, which is slightly above national and Highland average. And for the high school, it's 88.62%, which is again slightly above national and Highland averages, which is positive. The attainment overview for the primary schools shows that some of them within the ESG perform in line with and in some cases above the national and Highland averages. However, some perform below. Please note the data for the smaller schools hasn't been shared, obviously due to numbers, so for confidentiality reasons. So summarising, some of our schools within the Thurso ESG, the primary schools, have made improvements in terms of attainment, but not all. In secondary, the number of leavers achieving literacy and numeracy at levels 4 and 5 has been higher in all of the measurements bar 2 between 2021 and 2024 compared to the virtual comparator, which is really positive. In senior phase, the average TARF score was below the virtual comparator in 23-24, but it has been very close over the past 3 years. So it's generally in line, but this year slightly below. For our pupils who are leaving school, so their destinations for our 16+ pupils, Thurso High is very close to Highland and national average. It's very slightly below for this session, for session 23-24, but generally is very close. And as I said at the beginning, if you would like me to invite any of the schools within the Thurso ESG to the area business meeting, I'm sure they'll be delighted to come along and talk to you. So my second report is for Wick, the Wick ESG, and in Wick the primary schools have in total 800 pupils. The ELCs have 205 pupils or children, with 160 in our local authority settings and 45 in partner settings as of September. Wick High School has 718 young people. And again, the information is for 23-24, unless it states otherwise. As you can see, again, lots of information, and I would repeat the same offer if you'd like me to invite any head teachers along. They would be very happy to come to one of your business meetings. So you'll see for the Wick ESG, there have been 3 schools visited by HMI in the last 5 years, which are Wick High School, Leibster Primary School and Watton Primary School. Attendance within the primary schools, again for Wick ESG, is slightly above Highland and national average at 93.59, while the high schools average attendance is 86.54, which is below Highland and national average. Looking at the ESG primaries attainment, they are in line with national and Highland averages for different elements of literacy and numeracy. However, some are below for either one or the other. And again, because of the size of the schools, some schools don't have their data reflected due to confidentiality reasons. We can see improvements over time in at least some of the elements of literacy and numeracy for almost all of the schools for which data has been included. In secondary, the number of school leavers achieving level 4 literacy is in line with the VC, slightly below for national 5 literacy. However, other than this, in general, attainment at levels 4 and 5 literacy are improving over time, which is positive. However, high school is below the virtual comparator for numeracy in session 23-24. But on a positive note, within the senior phase, the average tariff score for Wick is above the virtual comparator. And for pupils aged 16 and over, in terms of positive destinations, again, Wick is above Highland and national averages. And again, this is an area of improvement for the high school. And just to finish, again, if you would like me to get any further information for you or to invite any of the schools to one of your meetings, I'd be really happy to do so. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Do members have any questions on this paper? Councillor McEwen.
No, thank you very much, Catherine, for that paper. And it's really good to see that our children are doing pretty well against the national average up here. I do go to the Wick High School Parent Council meetings, so I do know that it has been increasing the standards there. So yeah, so I think well done to the head teachers and that for keeping it up, and thank you for this report. It's a really good report, and long may it continue to go that way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeing any other hands up there, so are members content to note and agree both the reports there?
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your time, Catherine. It's greatly appreciated. So members now move on to item 11, which is the Wick Common Good Fund. It's the annual accounts and final monitoring. So I'll just pass over to the officers to introduce that.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. I'll start with the Wick Common Good Fund report. So this report represents the 24-25 annual report and the 25-26 monitoring report and the 26-27 budget. So income on a pro rata basis, invitation to pay appears to be on track to achieve the budget, although income may reduce throughout the winter. Expenditure costs incurred in the year to date, 1,137, included some minor property costs and replacement flag for Wick Town Hall, and a contribution to the Common Good officer costs. And we have a surplus of 52,489, which reflects the oversale payments. And moving on to quarter 3 monitoring for the current year, rental income outstanding to be paid annually in quarter 4. Leasing income was lower than forecast due to a tenant moving out, although there is some discussion with a new third sector organisation renting 2 offices from the end of this month. And invitation to pay is slightly lower than expected, with an oversale payment of £30,000, a one-off payment. So budget aims to deliver a balanced budget, and this is detailed in the report. And with the Common Good subgroup committee, as you know, has been formed, and I intend to go along to the next meeting when it's been arranged, and I can feed back all the information at our next meeting. Thank you. That's for there. If anyone's got any questions.
Great. Thank you very much. So members, do you have any questions on this one first of all? No, so our...
Can I just, actually, sorry, I haven't got my hand up because I'm looking at the report as well. And it's the budget estimate for 26-27. No, the income, the rents, invitation to pay, etc., etc. And the surplus is 0 because the costs just outstrip the The total income is 24,400 and the total expenditure is 24,400. So the surplus for that year is 0. I just was
Is this
wondering
for
about-
our, sorry, is this for our next year's budget?
Uh-huh.
So again, I'll speak with our accountant with that, but can I get back to you on that? I think because our surplus, our surplus last year or this financial year, obviously with our oversale payments, I'll check that figures and come back with confirmation of that, if that's okay, Councillor McEwen.
That's fine, Guy. That's fine. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions on this report, or are members content to agree that? I'm not seeing anything else, so members may ask to agree and consider the statement of accounts and consider the position of the fund and to approve the Wick Common Good Fund budget for the coming year. Are members content to agree all that?
Yeah.
See nodding heads, it's great. So now move on to item 12, which is the Thurso Common Good Fund, annual accounts and budget. So I'll pass back to Kai.
Thank you very much. So Thurso Common Good Fund, this is for the annual report for 24-25, monitoring report for 25-26 and budget setting for 26-27. So the annual report, as you know, this is the second annual report for Thurso Common Good. And with an income, the main income received in 24-25 was 9,180 for rent from the Thurso Caravan Park, with interest totalling £89. No expenditure, with a surplus of 9,269 from rents and interest. So Q3 monitoring report for the current year, you will note that rent income of 56,109. This is a one-off arrears payment from rent due. And expenditure was for common good officers' time, with a surplus of 55,917. So with the proposed budget, the forecast year in reserves is 72,986, and this best represents our understanding at the present time, but will work with the ongoing, will be ongoing to ensure that all Thurso Common Good income and costs are identified, and as like Wick, it will be necessary to develop income streams to build reserves for liabilities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I hope you can hear me. My signal's been cutting in and out, but I'll carry on assuming you can hear me. First of all, Kai, thank you for the work you've done, which you've kind of inherited. Two questions. First of all, I was wondering, is there a sort of general timescale for when the identification of all assets is likely to be concluded? And secondly, I know we're in the depths of winter just now, but and again, you may not be able to do this today, but can you give us, as local members, the latest position with the caravan park, given that another season is 2 or 3 months away from opening? Thank you.
Unfortunately, I can't give you answers on either of those at the moment, but okay. I will come back to you once I have more information. And with regards to the timescale of assets, I'd have to liaise with our Common Good officer and get back to you with that. And I know that some other officers are on in correspondence. So again, with regards to your second question, I can speak with you after I have more information, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I've not got any questions. Also, Councillor McEwen again there.
Sorry, can I just go back to the Wick Common Good Fund? I've had notification that the St Fergus Church is going to donate the communion table to the Wick Common Good Fund. I don't know if anybody's received a letter, but we should be getting a letter shortly. Will that be an additional asset?
Thank you, Councillor McEwen. I'll speak with our Common Good officer and we can liaise with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh.
Councillor.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks for the report. I'm all right in saying that the only income will actually be from the caravan park, and we're a wee bit concerned about the future about which Matthew raised. So we'll have to keep an eye on that if that's going to be our only form of income at the moment.
Absolutely, absolutely. Currently, I believe that is the only income, but as we say, we're kind of assessing the common good assets. So currently, that is the only income. But I will get back to you with regards to Councillor Reese's question.
Yeah, yes, thanks for that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to confirm that was only. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. So if there's no other questions there, we'll just turn to the recommendations again, which is to consider and agree the statement of accounts for the past year, consider and note the position of the fund in the monitoring statement, and to agree the Common Good Fund budget for the coming year. Are members content to agree all those? Yeah, that's perfect. So that's agreed. Then coming on to item 13, which is just for noting, that's the statement of discretionary budget applications for both wards. Members content to note? Yeah, and the last one there is just the minutes of the previous meeting, which were agreed at full council, again for noting. Perfect. So that brings us to the end of business today. So thank you very much for your time and attendance, members, and see you all again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. See you soon. Goodbye. Have a nice day.